All hail the corporate overlords. Holy shit. It's almost like we live under the Confederation of Independent Systems and Disney is which of the evil multi-planetary corporations would you most compare them to? Techno Union? I'm going with Techno Union because of the mutilation thing they did in Tartakovsky Wars.
No, I like the Techno Union.
Fair
It,
enough. Techno Union had better qualities than what Disney does.
no, I think the Trade Federation,
I mean, fitting. That is
because they're
fitting.
clearly insane. They somehow have tight connections with government, and they are able to, you know, I guess go rogue.
Well, also, their leadership are massively incompetent cowards that try to use dirty methods to win. I mean, honestly, if you take a look at Bob Iger and compare him to Newt Gunray, like, is there any difference? I'm just saying, you maybe Scooby Doo mask pull off his head and he'll be like a fish alien. I don't know. Hey there, the name's Adam,
I mean, sit.
and in celebration of the death knells of a terrible TV show, of a terrible streaming show, we're going to actually show you what the lore of a series, an IP that is now long dead and long dead, what it was like when it was actually good and written by people who gave a fuck.
Before the dark times.
Before the dark times. Have I ever told you the tragedy that was the tales of the EU books? It's a tale that Disney wouldn't tell you. We're talking about the Star Wars Rebel Alliance sourcebook. This is the first edition version, for those curious. I went
I
with
don't.
this because ImpCit's copy was a bit better than my copy. Again, if you're wondering, West End Games has a habit of using stills from movies. They don't tend to use art assets, which it's cheaper. Does feel I don't know because I just feel like there's a benefit for doing this, but there is credit. I'm gonna be honest sometimes in just having art assets of your own.
First printing 1990. So
Oh
I
yeah,
think the only thing we had to go on, at least lore-wise, is the Marvel comics and a few books.
I think a
Maybe
few
some of,
books. This is right before the special editions came out. I think the EU books were starting to crank out at this time.
yeah. And the special edition was late 90s.
Actually mid 90s. Phantom
But
Menace was late 90s.
yeah. But prologue. A message to Mon Mothma from Arhul Hextraphon, which apparently he's in episode 4. He's one of the characters in the background.
Is it the guy on the left when they're doing the medal ceremony?
One of them, yes.
Yeah.
This is a commissioning of all history on the Rebel Alliance. In its entirety, the report is 168 DSUs in length, takes over 700 hours to read. Therefore, because we're using material to organize as a briefing manual, I'll trust my assistant Voronal to prepare a condensed summary of the report. The first section is on the birth and growth of the Alliance. It is somewhat sketchy and incomplete due to the destruction of Alderaan. We kind of don't have, a lot of people to interview.
Also, by the
And
way, since this is before Georgie Porgy decided to start retroactively changing up history a bit, this is before he decided that the Rebel Alliance was founded by a guy named Starkiller,
well, no, they used his symbol.
which I still think is brain dead.
It is,
I'm not
but
acknowledging that. I'm sorry, George. That's really dumb.
yeah, the uh, next part is against about the Alliance military structure, which is very interesting because it's a it's not even a structured military.
It's literally, if you're wondering, because they're called the Rebel Alliance. The actual name for them is the Alliance to Restore the Republic. That's their official name, actually. Um, the best way to describe them is they're kind of formed out of a variety of remnants. I don't know if they actually. Well, no, this is the '90s. This is before the prequels, but I wouldn't be surprised if elements of the Confederation of Independent Systems formed part of their grouping.
Oh, absolutely. If there was somehow a reboot of Star Wars, I'd keep everything the same, but add in the Confederacy influence, because you definitely would have holdouts, not the corporate ones, because, well, Anakin killed them all, but diehard people who were like, no, I want to be independent.
By the way, hello there, Jim. Hello there, Alex. Hello there, Squirrel Killer, and hello there, Not Nito. Yep. Here's some fun news. Acolyte is so bad that it apparently had a pre-approved season 2 canceled. What
Play the
I
Ewok celebration music.
well, yup nub.
Nope, nope.
Uh, but here's the thing about that. I don't think it was a pre-made season 2. I think it was a 16 or 20 episode contract. I think it was a Velma scenario where they were promised X amount, and it's just the numbers were so dog shit they'd rather just write it off. I think they're gonna willow it,
But it's the most popular series ever, according to our numbers.
according to our numbers, which we just got busted fabricating. Oh no,
Oh,
let's let's false flag every person who fucking talks about the Acolyte. Oh,
nope.
I would laugh. I would legitimately laugh if this video got fucking got fucking claimed so no one on the planet could look at it. That would make me smile. Because what the fuck?
But,
But yeah, the
so
intro. The Rebel Alliance, the old Republic is dead. Gone beyond any hope of recall. The Jedi Knights are no more. Their flame extinguished, possibly forever, from the galaxy. Across thousands of worlds, untold billions writhe in terrible, implacable bonds of tyranny. There is a darkness in the galaxy, and it is called the Empire. But where there is darkness, there has to be light, and where there is tyranny, there must be rebellion. The Rebel Alliance is a frail thing to oppose the awesome power of the Empire. It's not a single military or a political force at all. Instead, it's a true alliance of diverse groups, organizations, and beings, many with nothing more in common than a deep, all-consuming hatred of tyranny. Yeah, that's the thing. The Alliance to Restore the Republic is a variety of shattered movements, each with their own ideas.
you know, even though it's by Disney, Andor honestly was the best that showed this because
Well,
this
because the
made
guy wanted to do a political thriller and actually kind of understood things. The guy legitimately wasn't a Star Wars fan, but you know what he had the dignity of doing despite not being a Star Wars fan when he was making Andor? He would look at Wikipedia, he'd look at like legends, he'd look at the Disney canon, he'd actually refer to it. He wasn't a big fan of that stuff, but he at least gave the minimal effort to make sure shit was consistent.
but there is a part where one of the characters is trying to get two different separate rebel cells together, but there are ideological differences.
Yep. Because what he probably did was he noticed that he either knew that because this was a mass popular movement sort of thing, that there was going to be scenarios like that, or he actually looked up that it was made from different groups. You got to give the Andor writers at least that much effort credit. They at least put that much effort in their work.
The other thing I like is that first paragraph is pretty much nothing about that is different from what we actually got.
Yeah.
Like when we were doing our Empire one, they had basically the Jedi working under the Empire, and then the Empire taking over and wiping them out. But I mean, honestly, can you call the or can't you call the Republic under Palpatine the Empire? I mean, it effectively was.
Well, the way I always saw it, especially when the prequels kind of reestablished what happened, Palpatine was always going to find a way to become Emperor. It just all that mattered was what scenario was the most likely outcome. If, say, his attempts to get rid of Valorum and become Chancellor failed, he probably would have just emphasized and focused on the CIS. The game was always rigged from the start.
Pretty much. So as they say here, these beings, mainly the poor, downtrodden, and oppressed, took to the hills, to the asteroid clusters, the far abandoned edges of space, waging an all but futile guerrilla war against the most powerful emperor the galaxy had ever seen. Uh, and
Mm,
the
yeah,
emperor
I could see it.
imposed oppressive new laws and onerous taxes.
Yep, onerous taxes, imprisoned or simply made disappear all who defied them. Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and a handful of others had never trusted him, and now they realized Palpatine was mad, or worse. So essentially, what really galvanized the Rebel Alliance was actually Palpatine's decision to completely dispense with the last trappings of the Republic.
Uh,
Because
the
one of the things that really incited the movement and gained new recruits was he just dismantled the Senate, like the last thing from the Republic days.
but yeah, we get that's what we get in episode 4. It is completely disbanded. Uh, these beings with long memories of senatorial abuse of power, incompetence, and outright evil. Palpatine started out as a senator and a noble, which is true. House
Yep.
Palpatine and Senator of Naboo. Uh, they had no reason to trust Mothma or Organa. Many of these groups had been fighting on their own for years and instinctively distrusted any outsiders. However, the more visionary leaders among the resistance realized that they needed a galaxy-wide uprising to have any hope of success. The only beings capable of gathering support for and running an insurrection were those who were well known with experience in thinking on a collective scale, senators, in fact. Thus was born the alliance, an uneasy marriage between the outcasts of the resistance and the nobility of the Senate.
Which I think is that's an interesting and pretty clever take on how to show that divide. Because yeah, that is a thing. You have hardcore revolutionaries who were basically fighting against the Empire's formation. And they do hint, I mean, we don't really know what the Clone Wars were like at this time because again, George Lucas didn't really do the prequels at this point. But you know that there was an older republic, that it collapsed and then an empire took its place, or that it rotted apart into the empire. So there would definitely be people that, especially since the Republic itself was not exactly the best at running things, that would be fighting. And then after the Empire became more authoritarian, more people would join.
And yeah, and
They also straight up say that you're very likely going to be working as a member of the Rebel Alliance because that is kind of the point of the Star Wars role playing game, somewhat. Not necessarily, you could definitely play Empire characters. It's just traditionally you're probably going to be playing among these guys.
then we have the picture of our heroes. I believe Arhul's the one behind Leia.
Yeah, I think yeah, this guy.
That yeah, yeah. But onto the birth of the rebellion.
Keep in mind this is older lore that got partially supplemented, but we'll see.
Yeah. So Galaxy's actually, let's start with Leia's quote. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Naturally, they became heroes. As the galaxy is vast, and so too is the empire which tries to encompass it. In recent months, the might of the empire has grown with frightening speed since the destruction of the Death Star. The emperor has shifted the focus of his military industrial power towards crushing the rebellion. Armed forces have doubled in strength, and there's a new fleet being built around the super class Star Destroyer, the Executor.
Which, before the Death Star was a thing, Star Destroyers were often used in its place because the solution was to just bomb the planet until they either surrendered or they all died.
But again, according to Tarkin doctrine, you want to inspire terror and fear into the enemy. And blowing up a planet, well, people can flee and they could survive off it. But if you destroy the entire planet, it's gone.
Did they ever
So that,
make a super weapon in Star Wars where the concept was, oh yeah, this weapon is designed to ignite the atmosphere, basically singe it into a dead, barren world?
ooh, no. I mean, I guess they could kind of do that, I think, with the Star Destroyers. They did have the World Devastators. But no, most of Palpatine's super projects were blowing up planets.
If you don't surrender, I will destroy all of the oxygen or methane that you breathe on your planet.
Yeah, he would just go for blowing up the planet.
I
He
could,
really liked that.
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, he would just blow up the planet.
And the Emperor has placed this fleet in the command of Darth Vader.
Yeah,
So, yeah, the rebels are fucked.
pretty much. Especially since while you don't necessarily see it in later iterations, Darth Vader, the whole thing about the guy is he's an excellent commander because he doesn't tolerate failure even from himself. And also, he's a pretty, by evil bad guy standards, he's a pretty darn good boss.
Yeah,
He only killed what's his face because the dude tried to shove others under the bus and make excuses.
it's not Piet. Ozzel, that's who he killed. He
Yeah, it
killed
was
Ozzel.
Ozzel.
I think he
When
killed somebody else. Oh no, he killed Nima as well.
he did.
Um,
Again, if you own up to your failures, he'll just expect you to do better. Maybe threaten you a bit.
so one by one, the trouble systems were being tamed by coldly efficient Imperial counterstrikes. Resistance units were scattered, in some cases destroyed, and the systems left to suffer under martial law. But that's where the state of the alliance is now. The actually, one other thing. They apparently Palpatine did not become chancellor or emperor. He became a president first. I feel like this is a bit of a holdover when Lucas wanted Palpatine to just be a parody of Nixon,
Yeah, because that's the thing. Palpatine originally was seen as the Nixon stand-in.
which really does make me want to have a parody of the Nixon tapes, but it's Palpatine.
I mean, remember, he also has Palpatine use George W. Bush quotes when talking about the threat of the CIS. He basically used the war on terrorism as his little pastiche, particularly in Episode 3.
Have I ever told you? I can't do George W. Bush. I can't do his accent. I was trying to.
Also, that does remind me, since you mentioned why Vader's men were so loyal, the Squirrel Killer. One of the things that I actually do like as a nice touch that Lucas did, which showed why they were so loyal, when elements of the clone armies were under threat of getting wiped out, Anakin actually would like go head first to try to save them. He does that in the opening of Episode 3, which I think is a good touch. It actually kind of gives an insight into the guy's character, and it gives insight in why, even as the Vader, he was well liked by his men.
You're doing a heck of a job, Anakin. Now watch this drive. As he activates the Death Star.
No, I thought you were talking about Palpatine when he was the senator. Like, as the ship is crashing, as the invisible hand or whatever the hell it was called is crashing
Yeah.
on Coruscant. It's like, watch this, Anakin. And he does like a sick Tokyo drift on the to aim the ship.
But now onto the leaders of the Rebel Alliance. So you had Mon Mothma of Chandrila, Bail Organa of Alderaan, and they don't reference it, but you had, I think you had parts of Corellia. I think Garmbel Ibbles was Corellia.
I know that among this group are the same is the company that made the X-wing that basically said, "Yeah, fuck the Empire."
Incom. Yeah, Incom.
Incom, was the head of Incom was also a major member.
What was it? The Catham House. This is, I guess, later lore, but it's the Catham House were the ones that was the meeting where they initially discussed the alliance. Yeah, it was Garmbel. Was he of? Was he of? He was Corellian. Um,
Vader's competence and qualities depended on who wrote him. The old EU was pretty good at staying consistent with him. They weren't perfect, but they usually did pretty good. The wild characterization swings kind of mostly happened during the later years, and then when Disney got him.
well, yeah, because initially they had no backstory for him. They, you know,
Like, there's a little bit of weird fuckiness with that, but then they kind of
I,
made him a little more consistent.
I think
And then they
I think
lost
both
that consistency because you had people working on it that have no clue how to fucking make the character
I think
consistent.
both EU and Disney really emphasize that his missing of Padme.
Yeah, which don't get me wrong, that does affect him on a pretty strong scale. But the whole point of Vader is he kind of sinks himself into the dark side to kind of not remember that shit.
Or at least be like, yeah, just doesn't care anymore. She's dead.
Which reminds me, speaking of idiocy, Vader going to Tatooine
When?
in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, he was going to Tatooine. Which why is that dumb? Because here's a
He
fun
never
little.
wanted to go there again.
Yeah, he never did. In fact, actually, Vader very strongly considered initially that the first test firing of the Death Star should have been on Tatooine.
Yeah.
The
However, there was a
only
problem.
reason, the only reason that he decided not to, because I mean, admittedly, it was Tarkin and Palpatine that had the final say, but the reason he never pushed for it seriously was only just because that's where his mother was buried. That's it.
Oh, I would have
If
also
Shmi
thought.
wasn't if Shmi wasn't there, he would have been like, "I suggest we blow up Tatooine."
Oh, the other thing I thought was because he'd probably have a huge war against the Hutts, because
Oh, he wouldn't care.
no, but the Empire would.
He wouldn't care.
So yeah, so
Also, a reminder: Sidious could definitely cook up ways to make the war against the Hutts really palatable. He can use it to rally people. He can use it to do sinister things to like get
let's
people on his
let's
side.
let's kill those slime balls.
Like let's be fair. I think Palpatine would have been okay with a war against the Hutts.
They, however, they had a lot of Imperials in their pocket.
Yeah, that's true.
They had a lot. Um, but so yeah, they had the conception of the rebellion. It said that wasn't until the Gorma massacre that it turned around, which was a peaceful demonstration against new taxes, and then a Republic warship, which actually was a Star Destroyer, landed right on top of them. And Tarkin was the guy in charge, and he was promoted.
Yep.
And that was where Bale realized the Republic was dead.
So yeah, in the old lore, essentially, this is back when the Senate still had a little bit of teeth, and Palpatine was just a president. People protested the new taxes to raise for the military and I believe other institutions like the intelligence agencies. They began protesting, and this is how Tarkin got promoted. His response to a sit-in protest is, "Oh, we'll just crush them."
We'll sit on top of them. So he likes sitting so much.
If Tarkin was the manager of a restaurant and they did a sit-in protest, his response would be, "Okay, fire the detonation packs,
Oh, like what? I think
demolish my building,
no, it would have been this. Okay, take the grease from the fryer and just pour it on them.
and then torch him."
So Bale used his influence on many committees to funnel money, weapons, and information to anyone without anyone suspecting him.
By the way, another
Bale
reason the Obi-Wan Kenobi show was a massive failure, Bail Organa had to play a very long game to try to hide this. Yes, he funded the rebellion cells quite extensively, but he had to kind of be very subtle about that.
Andor actually does this very well, because
It is the gallant
because
to most of
yeah,
Disney's goofus, yeah.
well, yeah, but Mon Mothma was actually taking money out of her accounts and funneling them. But then when there were new regulations that clamped down, she had no she had no way to get it out without anyone noticing. And also the fact, strangely, all of the bank tellers kept changing faces every time she went there, almost like they were not actually bank tellers but ISB agents.
Here's a little fun bit about, that Mon Mothma recollects. After so she's talking about what Bail was doing. And the thing is, Bail Organa was on a lot of committees because he was the experienced senator. This means he had a lot of influence to play around with. He was on the finance commissions, he was on appropriations, he was on intelligence oversight. So one of the fun things that Bale could do, although he had to play it smart, and he often he had to play it smart and basically play kind of utilitarian sometimes. He could funnel money. He could actually embezzle money to aid the alliance.
Though this is essentially, it's like if Mitch McConnell was funneling money to, like, I don't know, Nick Fuentes or something like that.
Uh, yeah, I could see that. Not him doing it, but that's not a bad analogy there. Also, Emperor, when Palpatine declared himself Emperor, one of the things he did was arrest Mon Mothma. The only reason she wasn't disappeared somewhere was because of bail.
And on the run, she began to develop the Alliance, using work hammered out during the Catham House visits in the Imperial City. They were able to integrate many diverse organizations and groups into opposition to the Emperor known as the Alliance.
Well,
Several months
yeah.
later, when he felt he could do no more in the Senate, he returned home to become Viceroy and first chairman, convincing them to renounce the pacifism he instituted after the Clone Wars, turning the planet, which had only been known peace for years, into a center of rebellion. And then he put his daughter in charge of the Senate.
Yeah, that's a bit of fun nepotism.
Yeah.
Basically, it really shows you how corrupt the Republic was if you could just be like, yeah, my kid will serve for me.
Well, let's only forget this. These are senators, but Bale could resume basically being the head of the planet and whatever the first chairman meant. So he was both a senator, a planetary governor, and the head of a corporation.
Yeah, that really tells you how fucked the old Republic got by its end. Tarkin would
Eh,
replace Bezos after he failed to crush unions hard enough. Oh God, yes, he would.
Yeah. And then there was the Corellia Treaty, which was the meeting between the three largest resistance groups. Now, they don't say which of them, but I think this is where we get, the Chandrillans, the Corellians, and the Eldoranians.
I think
Uh,
so.
they pledged their lives and property to the Alliance, swore to fight the battle until the Empire is destroyed or we are. And the specifics were then hammered out in that treaty. There's an advisory council set up. The Allies each had authority over operations on their own planets. Mothman or people had all other control.
Oh, that
Alliance
actually
was,
reminds me, since you're a little more knowledgeable in the EU than I am, I'm only somewhat. Did they ever, when the Empire collapsed, did they ever get into like the new Republic purges that would have occurred afterwards?
well, what
Because
happened
let's be
is
frank, there were gonna be purges afterwards.
I think there were, but here's the other thing. It took them years to get to Coruscant and claim it, and within that time, the Empire fragmented, and there were just complete chaos on these
Oh, I'm
planets.
aware of that aspect. This is actually why, while I think by the end of his arc he became a bit of a Sioux, there's a reason Thrawn was very critical to reviving the Remnant.
I actually don't think there was any sort of administration or
Oh,
governance.
there was nothing left because it was all centered around Palpatine. When he died, it was
Yeah,
fucking gone.
so there really wasn't any need for purges. The issue that did came up, and
Oh,
this
I don't
is
mean purges of
decades.
the old order. I mean, oh yeah, now it's time to start knifing the factions that we teamed up with.
No, I mean some of them may have gone off on their own, but they tried to keep everything together by
Fair enough. I
instituting it.
just I just
Yeah,
kind of had to ask about that because that is a kind of an issue with rebellion groups that are broad front like that.
there is a civil war that does happen between Corellia and the New Republic, which is the Corellian faction is being led by Han's son, who turned to the dark side and killed his aunt.
Oh yeah, Darth Caedus.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm aware of him. That final arc it wasn't great. I mean, it's still a hell of a lot better than what Disney cranked out, but there's a reason why readership started to plummet around that time.
ironically, both of them end with Han kind of in misery. But so also while we're going through this, they keep bringing up the Atravis sector. I think is just from the RPG. I have never really seen this in any lore.
It almost certainly is the default setting, if I had to guess. This region of the galaxy.
And you could tell they're taking names of planets based on stars. Like instead of Tatooine, it's Mantuine.
Oh no, Mantuine was a thing. Actually, if I recall, it is
Oh,
used a few times in the EU.
oh.
But keep in mind that, funnily enough, this RPG was pretty influential on the EU.
So
Like, it either got direct aid from writers who were working on books in the EU, or they came up with stuff that writers who wrote later books would actually use.
so the there was an issue though with the alliance and its leadership because
By
if
the way,
you're
I will agree, Jim. In the Empire, Nick Fuentes would just be basically a Newt Gunray, like a disposable idiot asset that Palpatine would use.
he'd definitely be a Compnor uh asset on the HoloNet until he's inevitably compromised because he does nothing.
Yeah, let's just be fair. He'd be liquidated. He'd be
Oh yeah,
liquidated screaming.
because his antics actually turn people to the rebellion.
I could see
Like,
it.
wait, this is what the Emperor thinks is the best? This is high human culture? And and Al and and Al Kasani pretending to be a Coruscanti?
I'm just now envisioning Grand Moff Tarkin going, "With all due respect, my Emperor, what the fuck?" Pointing to Nick Fuentes. I'm just now envisioning like Grand Moff Tarkin giving a reason why you suck speech because he's single-handedly doing more damage to his pro-human supremacy movement than anything else that has ever happened.
Oh, I'm just trying to think of an alien species that would fit as a half human.
I mean, there's a lot of near humans.
The man's half Killick
Yeah,
or
he could
half
be.
Geonosian.
Oh no. If you like, the way I would envision it is there's a lot of near human species that can intermingle.
Yeah,
One that commonly is not brought up no more are Zeltrons, which are the red ones.
yeah, but well, they're
There's
hedonistic. That actually might now that now let's say Fuentes is half Hut.
a
You
hut
know, the
would not
splut.
dean and a hut would not dean to.
Yeah, well, test tube baby. That, but you know, the lazy, greedy, hermaphroditic, uh, crime lords. But nevertheless, so the issue the with leadership is that well, they don't want to have anything like an empire. So every 2 years, representatives from all the alliance must vote for a leader.
Mainly
Because
because Mon Mothma experienced what it's like because as a senator she saw what happened when a president got too much power. She almost died. If it wasn't for Bale giving her warning, she would have been grabbed by the ISB and disappeared somewhere to never be seen again. So, yeah, there's a reason that they decided to kind of heavily decentralize their government, which might actually have been why in the books they didn't actually have too many power squabbles because you could just wait 2 years and decide what policies should go in by just replacing the leadership.
also, Jimmy, you're right. Yeah, the EU at least had it better. I mean, technically, their daughter gets trained by the Mandalorians and then marries
Yeah, she
Roan.
got trained by Blorba
Yeah.
Fett and then.
Well, no, not this is Boba Fett,
Yeah, but
Mandalore.
I still think it's pretty brain dead that a dude who failed at defeating a rookie Jedi is now the source of how to defeat a Sith. Like, I think
He's
that's
a
kind of brain dead.
he's a Mandalore. Doesn't matter. He's got Mandalorian tactics.
His shit pushed in by a blind guy.
Well, if we go by Robot Chicken, he was drunk at the time. But
Fair, but even then,
but also, their grandchildren actually end up becoming the inheritors of the Empire.
yeah, yeah,
So the solos work out in the end.
they do. Again, I only kind of ding on Boba Fett because he literally is the epitome of what a cool costume.
Yeah.
In the
So
original run, he only had 5 lines, and one of them was his death scream as he gets knocked into a
yeah.
sarlacc.
So the rebels issued the Declaration of the Rebellion and actually was sent out and distributed across the galaxy. It was called by the Imperial Propaganda Bureau blatant terrorism and an anti-establishment insurgency.
Also, don't forget being called pirates, criminals, and anarchists.
Oh, and also, it is a ripoff of the American Declaration of Independence.
I'm not surprised.
You have disbanded the Senate, the voice of the people. You have instituted a policy of blatant racism and genocide against the non-human peoples, overthrown the chosen rulers of planets, replacing them with their moffs and governors of choice. You have raised taxes without the consent of those taxed, murdered and imprisoned millions without benefit of trial, unlawfully taken land and property. You've expanded the military far beyond what is necessary and prudent for the sole purpose of oppressing your subjects.
So,
And I,
so this leads to the dark comedy of Mon Mothma having to put down a whiskey rebellion.
uh, yeah, eh, I think that happened. Some some of that stuff did happen. Um, but then the Battle of Yavin happens. Also, something to note: there's no dates. We didn't get the timeline yet. I think.
It wasn't hard coded yet. No.
Nah. Um, and yeah, the Aileron gets destroyed by the Death Star. The Alliance was shaken, but even under this new threat of genocide, on a scale never seen before, most rebels held firm to their vow to fight on and until victorious.
Or no, in this case they realized, oh, so the solution is death no matter what. Very well then.
Yeah, honestly, the worst thing that the Empire probably did was the Death Star, because not only did it psychologically fuck up people on the Death Star, like, funny enough, apparently they could have fired on Yavin 4 and blown it up, but the guy who was in charge of it kept saying stand by, because he was suffering post-traumatic stress disorder of having committed genocide. Not to mention that probably a fuck ton of pilots, I think one of them actually, who's in Rogue Squadron, was talking to his family when the Death Star blew up the planet. So, yeah,
Oh
they
no,
have,
think about it like
you know,
this. Imagine if you were staffed on the Death Star and you were from Alderaan, which
oh
could have
yeah,
happened. Because there's quite a few Alderaani that were probably off-world in the Imperial Army.
oh yeah, um,
The moment that
yeah,
fucking happened, no, they all leave. They're all going to join the.
they're all, yeah,
They're gone. They're gone, and they have no home to return to. That just means they're willing to fight until they're all dead.
yeah. Uh, and well, then they finally were able to get that plan into motion. They got the plans, blew it up. We've all seen episode 4. We know what happens.
Yep.
Um,
And while Disney's take involved Andor and involved Rogue One, the original one was actually a character called Kyle Katarn.
yep. And yeah, so they don't actually mention actually the fleeing of Yavin. Just that the executor has been built. And they have a newfound image of respectability as a military force. Outlying systems are very impressed by it. Most systems, knowing the Awesome Fleets of the Empire's command and the relative community force of the Alliance, used to see no option but to surrender to the Empire without battle. But because think about it this way, it was about 32 ships, and they're starships, starfighters, blew up a fucking planet or a moon-sized station.
A moon-sized station which had 500,000 personnel and which cost the Republic, well, the Empire, a lot of money.
So,
I believe the
yeah,
price to make a Death Star is the equivalent of you could make an entire small fleet of Star Destroyers. Not Super Star Destroyers, but, Star Destroyers.
so
Especially since the
yeah.
prototype laser cannon that can blow up a planet, that shit requires an intense power source.
Well, I mean, you could just wait 30 years and build an entire fleet of them.
That was actually Palpatine's goal all along. Let them blow
I,
that up, because I've got
I,
something even cooler in the works later.
I actually will say he did that in the expanded universe as well. He had the Eclipse, he had the Galaxy Gun.
Well, why do you think Disney keeps stealing from the EU? Oh, we don't use the EU until we do, and then it's like, oh no, we always respected the canon. Pigs, chuds. Ugh.
It's just, I just say, why the accept? Why the obsession with planet destroyers?
Because if you want someone dead, you have to do it right. See,
But
you could
there'll be no
just
more
shoot the
planets.
no, you could just shoot them. You could shoot them, you can shoot their family, you could shoot any one of them that sold them Dexter Jetster's burgers. You could do that. But to make it even easier, just blow up the planet. That gets rid of everyone they knew, including them.
Plus,
Also, I
because
enjoy it when they scream. I can hear them in the Force.
actually, yeah, probably it's that.
That
Remember,
Loki, remember, he is super fucking evil, so
remember Obi-Wan did that. Remember that the destruction of Malachor 5 created a fucking wound in the Force.
he legitimately said it feels as if millions of voices cried out at once and were silenced. So yeah, Palpatine felt fucking amazing whenever that
I'm
happened.
alive again.
I feel like before Mace Windu fucked my face up.
So the other impressive success is that the alliance is going on is their politics. They have uh, um, an alliance with the Mon Calamari shipbuilders, and that actually has helped them because
One of the
uh,
interesting qualities about Mon Calamari ships are they are massively overperform for their size.
yeah, and they basically have this whole planet, and the Empire really can't touch the Mon Calamari. It just would
Not
take too much.
easily.
They do not have any allies in the core systems. Very few political connections. Just the ISB is everywhere. They do the Empire, or no, the Alliance does have the Ministry of Education, which is designed to do counter propaganda, which again has been made easier because they just say, "Hey, we're not the guys that blew up one of the most cherished core worlds in the galaxy."
Also, a fun fact is it's kind of a small nod to, weirdly enough, this reminds me of the Albanian communist movement. If you're wondering why communism got so popular in Albania during World War II, similar with communism in Yugoslavia, it's because one of the things they did was they had their own education program. They legitimately taught people how to read.
Which, yeah, that does wonders if you can actually, you know, teach people how to read and then also engage in propaganda.
Also, weird Albanian fact: the alphabet was actually created by a feminist. Like the alphabet song they have was created by a Protestant feminist that was
Oh,
educated in the West.
I'd love to hear that then. I wonder
It is
if it's
actually
actually
it is
informative or
actually still
cringy.
used to this day. And it was so popular, even though she was considered persona non grata in the communist state of Albania, it was still used because it was just that useful to teach people, children and adults, how to fucking read.
Yeah. So
Oh yeah, the
here's
worst part of the Death Star is it does genuinely destroy the resources because it basically just turns it into dust. Good luck.
that. Yeah, that
That's why my oxygen destroyer concept would have been the more efficient terror weapon.
also the world devastators because they just chew up that and create new stuff out of it. So here's the alliance government. They do have a civil government somehow.
Well,
You have the
it's likely because you have former members of the Senate that joined them. You also have planets that straight up did join them after Yavin.
yeah. So you have the chief of state of Mon Mothma, her advisory council, the cabinet with the ministers of finance, education, state, industry, war, supply, and then each planet allied command has the same thing. So the chief of state is Mon Mothma, has unlimited powers over civil government, two-term office, can be decisions can be overturned if two-thirds of the advisory council vote her down, in which case she is also ousted from office.
Which is
So,
actually a bit of a nod to how this is actually similar to how veto power works in the U.S. government.
well,
Uh,
except that the president doesn't leave.
that's the only exception, which I think is a little bit silly. But again, they're trying to risk on the side of caution
Yeah,
someone from getting too much power.
yeah, and
I don't
uh,
think it's the most efficient system, but the whole
no,
concept is just like you need something better than an emperor who blows
and
people up just because he likes to feel them die in the force.
Yep. The chief of state will be abolished when the emperor is deposed, killed, or resigns. I don't know how they were going to get that last part. He'll just give up. I'll retire to Naboo and just do speeder biking.
They scream at the last remnants of the clone troopers execute Order 65, and like because their chips are
Yeah.
malfunctioning, they just force them to
For
resign.
those who don't know, Order 65 is to kill the Chancellor.
Imagine if Palpatine misspoke when he said execute Order 66.
He just forgot
No, no, no.
because Mace Windu fried his brain.
He did
He's like,
he did Rails of Spices. He's like,
yeah,
hey, let's do Order 65. Ah, fuck,
it
fuck.
will be done, uh, Commander Cody. Yeah, it will be done, my lord. Master Kenobi, or General Kenobi, we're relocating Coruscant. Why? We have to kill the Chancellor. Wait, what? Yeah, we just gotta kill him. He's gone rogue. He's a Sith Lord.
Kenobi's completely fucking confused because he's trying to actually do like what was it? He's fighting in some battle somewhere. You got you got him trying to stop General Grievous from killing more Jedi, and he's like, wait, we have to do what now? And all the clones leave with the Jedi confused. Grievous is screaming, "Come back and fight me, you coward!"
They just say to Grievous, "Oh, by the way, we're killing your master too." Turns out he's the same guy.
What?
Yeah, you all guys were being played for a lie.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think Grievous could be able to take that because of how fucked his brain was by the cyberization.
Oh, and then Cody says, "Oh, by the way, Anakin's fucking Padme. All the clones know it. I'm
Oh,
surprised.
I'm just
It's
now
clones.
envisioning
It's the
Obi-Wan.
clone sense.
I
It's the
love,
clone sense.
I love the joke that Obi-Wan at first is like, "Oh, okay." He doesn't know it means attachment. He just thought, "Oh, it's like a fling." Okay.
Oh no, they're having a child. Twins even.
Wait, what?
It's the clone sense.
Meanwhile, you have Count Dooku going, "Yes, my plan worked perfectly for the greater good."
And now I can finally kill all the aliens on my side.
And then you just hear Newt Gunray scream, "No, not the face!" And you hear like squelching noises.
Yeah. So, uh, let's
That
see.
that would be that would be an amazing short shit post.
Yeah. So, advisory council will then assume executive power, and a constitutional convention will decide on the Second Galactic Republic. Um, Given that it's asking for the form of government and it's called a republic, I think they kind of already have the form of government.
Yep, they have some of it.
So, Chief of State
Order
response.
65 was there's a bunch of programmed orders in the clones. There's a bunch of
Yeah,
them.
I think it was in like maybe Star Wars Insider or something like that.
65 was, I believe it was if, say, for example, I think the idea for that one was if Palpatine didn't actually get the Chancellorship, he used that as the excuse to kill the guy that would have gotten the Chancellor.
An institute, you know.
Like I would low-key think that Order 65 was a failsafe in case Palpatine did not win against Valorum. He could just accuse him of being a Sith and plain evidence, and then get them to do an Order 65 in the event that failed.
Or or actually if he's ever gets deposed during the Clone Wars. Because then at that point I think he would just take the clone army and use them to kill
Yeah.
his rivals. Fuck it, I'm done pretending.
It could also just be a case of this way it looks more legitimate and more innocuous.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch
So
of these orders,
yeah. So then there's the advisory council.
which is comprised of people who have gotten fucked up the most. Oh, by the way, hey, there's an Ithorian. You don't get to see them too often no more. This is one
There's
that
an
actually has the normal throat and mouth.
well, that's a different alien species apparently.
I think it's just that Disney designers were stupid and confused and didn't remember what they
No,
looked like.
they want to do their own thing. Honestly, what I would have done,
Do their
same
own
thing.
thing in quotes. Yeah.
Well,
Pull the
no,
other
same
one.
thing that they did with the Duros and the Nemoidians, where the Nemoidians are an offshoot of the Duros.
Offshoot, huh? Oh yeah, our fan fiction characters were first.
No, no, that's in the Nemoidian and the Duros are related.
Fair enough. I'm just kind of like, okay. I'm just gonna be
Uh,
honest. I think their designs look terrible though.
eh.
Something
So
about that mouth. Putting a mouth on an Ithorian looks bad.
yeah, but back to the cabinet. So you have the Minister of Finance, which is
Oh no,
to
actually, if you're wondering, the advisory council, the seven planets that got the most fucked up got a seat. Uh, Hilariously, Alderaan would have gotten it.
I believe Kashyyyk is gets to be one of them. I think it's Kashyyyk, whoever the planet of the Bothans, maybe Moncal, and I think a few human planets.
Mon Calamari almost certainly got because they they single-handedly funded most of their navy.
Yeah. So Minister of Finance, obviously
Nemoidia
finance.
and Duros being related was Georgia. I was just complaining because it was being used in reference to the Disney take on the Ithorian subspecies, which I thought looks like
Well,
shit.
no, I don't know if that's a subspecies or not, but that would make sense.
It would make sense if it A, the design looked okay, which it doesn't, and B, if you didn't know they were stupid enough, they probably fucked up and called them Ithorians at some point.
But here's the harebrained scheme of the Minister of Finance. They're issuing alliance war bonds, low yield, long-term bonds redeemable 5 to 25 years after the war. Make that clear. After the war.
Yeah, you burn
Which
all your
is
money before then, fuck you.
it's not a sound investment, and the people that purchase them don't really expect to make money. They just wish to help. They're also responsible. The finance minister is also responsible for printing the alliance's money. The alliance credit is supposed to be worth the same as an imperial credit, but on the black market, 25 to 1 imperial. Although sympathizers will accept on face value.
Oh, also, if you're wondering, Jim, like I didn't know that, so fair enough. Duros being from the same lineage as the Nemoidians, and the Nemoidians are an offshoot. Fair enough. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Uh, So yeah,
Uh,
Minister of
the next,
Education.
yep, which is intelligence and propaganda, which is probably the most Orwellian word in the alliance. It's not really education then.
Well, I mean, think about it like this: it spun off from the Republic, which became the Empire, and remember, I believe their education ministry also covers the same aspects.
You're right. You're right. Uh, and they do so by essentially just spreading holotapes, like bootlegs.
Uh, Again, that actually does remind me of the Chetniks from Yugoslavia. They did the same thing. They'd import like Allied films from behind enemy lines.
The Minister of State is the one who handles relations with non-allied governments and also takes over as chief of state in the event of the death or the impeachment of the chief of state.
Hey, we got rules of succession, which is something
Yeah.
people don't think about sometimes at these.
And I believe actually in the U.S., I think is it fourth position is um,
It is in order vice president. I believe it's either president pro tempore of the Senate.
it no it is yeah it is, and the fourth is the Secretary of State. So yeah,
I thought oh, no, it could be Speaker of the House and then
no,
Secretary of State.
no, it's Vice Speaker of the House, President pro tempore, and then the
Yeah. Because
Secretary of State.
I remember the cabinet doesn't come up before the heads of the legislative branches,
Yeah.
and it makes
Then
sense.
you
Speaker of the House gets priority because that's supposed to represent the people.
yep.
If you're wondering, that's
Um,
like the logic of the order because originally, you didn't really vote for senators. They were, I believe, appointed by the state.
yep.
That was changed due to an amendment.
I think it was 17th.
It was the 17th one. It was the one before women were allowed to vote. Though I believe a few
Oh, the
states allowed
18th.
for voting.
Well, yeah, that's kind of how a lot of those amendments got passed. They kind of had it on their own and then changed it.
Yep, and
But
if you're wondering, amendments work by getting 3/4 majority
yep.
statewide.
Yep. Minister of Industry, which bit of an issue because they don't have large factories.
Oh, I imagine the person running Minister of Industry is constantly struggling and screaming. This is probably where I'd put a Mon Calamari in.
I'd put a Bith actually here.
Bith would also work.
They're brainiacs.
Bith were
Um,
Brainiacs, but also remember Mon Calamar produces a lot of their stuff,
yeah.
so.
Well, the Minister of Supply is in charge of begging, borrowing, or stealing the food, clothing, and other supplies necessary to keep the fleet and the armies in the
Awesome.
field. It's like that. Yeah, I mean, they're probably stealing from the Empire, but
That's fine.
um, now the Alliance has an abundance of food, but has a terrible time getting the food to where they need. Most likely,
Famines, glorious famines.
well, I'm thinking it's just more like, for instance, if the fleet had to jump from hyperspace and you don't know where the fleet is, how can you get the food to them?
Also, especially since you can't use the main routes, they're watched by the Empire.
Yep. Um,
You have to
yeah,
you have to actually risk and chart new courses too. That's something they probably have to do quite regularly.
yeah, and they actually bring up here the evacuation of the rebel base at Yavin already aggravated the situation as the Alliance supply ships were pressed into duty, which I think were those like weird like bug capsule white ones.
Yeah, that's what they are. I think they're being used as the supply ships.
Well, but they're now pressed into service.
Yep, have fun, rebel bases. You're starving tonight. Yay!
Oh, they say yeah, rebel bases everywhere are going hungry.
Hooray!
And the Minister of War is responsible for obviously the
No,
military
no, no, no,
directive.
no. They are only going hungry because Porkins ate all the food before he got fucking killed.
Well, they should be relieved right now.
He, no, they're like, why couldn't he die before he ate all of the food before the ships got pressed?
But then you have the Allied commands, which effectively it's just the same thing.
But yeah, they're the smaller iterations. These are also much more independent than the Empire, which completely controls everything. These guys have a lot of their own personal initiative.
And
And the
next up
way
is
their rulership works, chief executives are sometimes hereditary, they're sometimes elected, sometimes they're appointed, or sometimes they're basically just fucking dictators.
the rebels really didn't care who was on their side as long as they were on their side.
Yeah, as long as fuck Palpatine, that's all they cared about.
What you want to genocide the humans? Fine, but you hate Palpatine.
I'm just now envisioning you got like this tyrannical like tin pot dictatorship of the planet who basically is angry because he was not promoted over another Moff, so he's joined the empire, so he's joined against them.
You probably could get that. Um, but next up is the Alliance intelligence. I guess they're doing a little story from that, but a few pages later, they do talk about what the role of the intelligence is, which is it's important because this is how they know about the Empire and what they're doing.
Oh yeah, the Rebel
If they
Alliance's
can,
intelligence agency is quite good.
if they can trust civilian governments, if they know of places that they can hide, it's very important.
It is probably besides supply, the most important role that's in the organization.
So, Chief of Intelligence, you have it breaks down between intentions, which has the cryptology analysis, interrog, and equipment sections. Operations includes systems passive and coordinate, and counterintelligence includes security and retrieval.
Yeah, because sometimes you have important assets that you need to get back, or you find some critical information you need to send a few dozen boffins to die to get.
Let me see on Wikipedia if they name. So, known chiefs were General Varen, Arian Kraken, and Crix Maydeen.
Oh yeah,
And
I know what you're talking about, Jim. Disney Parkins, they did like an entire terrible comic with him where he poops his pants on a beach.
oh,
You gotta love the comics where a lot of them were just the author's poorly disguised fetish that week.
it's I'm surprised that they didn't go on a
A,
rant about.
reminder: Disney also hired a fart fetishist to write one of their books, and it resulted in, I believe, Han and Leia's wedding, resulting in everyone farting to near death. So, there's an entire chapter during the wedding where they describe in vivid detail the gastric impulses that lead to them farting en masse.
Now I'm wishing fondly for the days when we just had Chewbacca's father watching porn,
Which, hey, let's be fair. Let's be fair. That's
which
probably
he
a thing.
was. He was in the holiday special.
Oh God. By the
It,
way,
it
fun
also
fact:
it wasn't Wookiee porn. It was not Wookiee porn. It was humans. The
also the
man's got a
best part about
fetish.
the holiday special, before Disney nuked all ratings for their terrible Disney Plus shows on Rotten Tomatoes, just turning it into IGN, new agitprop generator where there's no value at all. It was doing worse than the holiday special. It actually had a lower score. Holiday special is considered better by a long shot compared to fucking Acolyte.
Hell yeah, it is.
And it is like sure,
It's
I don't
fun.
understand half of it because it's all in Wookiee and they don't have subtitles for some fucking reason.
The thing is though is that yeah, back then everyone's upset, but as a fan now, it's like, you know what? I want to see it.
The weird TV bits are almost kind of interesting though because like you have the weird cooking show, you have the you have the you have Chewie's
You
dad wanking off to human porn,
you have B. Arthur running the cantina,
which I actually liked that one.
and then you have Boba Fett in a clearly drugged Han Solo in animated form,
That's the best part because the Boba Fett one, that's the first time the character
yeah.
appeared.
And everyone is on cocaine. Everyone.
Well, no, let's be fair. Luke wasn't. Mark Hamill wasn't. He was just on painkillers after the car accident. And Carrie Fisher stole some of them to mix with her cocaine. Also, at several points, you can see her cocaine finger.
I love the 70s.
I think at one point, I think at one point Harrison Ford visibly looked stoned. Like, yeah, fine.
Because no one knew what the fuck they were doing.
Hey Carrie, do you want to do you want to after film productions just rail each other on the set? Sure, sure. And then Hamill's like, "Hey guys, you want to hang out? Sure, kid. Later." Because
Just
that's the best part. Hamill looked up to them, so he'd like constantly go after them like a little puppy. And Han's like, "Yeah, sure." He's like, "What the fuck, guy? Okay." Like he liked working with him, but he just like Hamill was clueless sometimes when it came to them.
so I guess back onto the intelligence. So here's how their cell structure worked. So in the network, the network knows three people, who knows three people, who knows three people,
A
and
little
so
bit of
on
a
and so
pyramid
on.
scheme, but the whole concept makes sense. Like you don't want
You don't
structures
want
to break apart easily.
you don't want things to be compromised.
Also, the reason this works is you have the upward connected agents. Those can be cut if the entire cell is compromised. Like you can actually direct exactly where it needs to be cut.
Uh, so this each cell has its case officer. First priority is to ensure his network is not infected.
Which is a
If a
massive
problem,
concern
yeah,
because the ISB is pretty good at their job too.
yeah. Then the network leader is the highest
You
ranking
never
native
know
in
if
the
one
cell.
rebel cell is actually just a bunch of ISB agents pretending to hate the government.
And remember, aliens are more than happy to work with the Empire. You can't simply trust species. Uh, you then have your network leaders, your area coordinator. Many actually area coordinators carry lullabies, which are suicide pills.
Yeah, which is a bit of a nod to the cyanide pills agents
Mm,
used to have in World. A lot of World War II references are in both of these books.
oh yeah.
This is a strong nod to intelligence and how it worked in World War II. The only thing we're missing is an equivalent to ciphering machines, coding machines.
Well, there was cryptology. I think that's
Yeah, and
yeah.
we're about to get into cryptology. Actually, that could be interesting.
So then the cells, they'll know three people in the network, uh, other members in the cells, and possibly a member in the cell above them.
You never the concept being they know enough that you can maybe get a few, but they don't know so much that you have a weak point.
As they say, the Imperial truth, drugs, and torture are virtually irresistible, as well as their money and power to some.
Don't
But
forget
the
their
cell
mind
network,
probing droids because they're totally okay with turning your brain into spaghetti to get the info out of your head.
yeah, the cell networks though have survived, which just shows them uh, how effective the cell network actually is. But then we have the intentions branch, which is to use data to predict where the Empire's forces are going to do.
These guys are these are the ones that hide in the rooms. They're pasty white. They're your computer nerds that are twitching and completely on Spice or Mountain Dew.
Yep.
Oh, that reminds
Cryptology.
me. Thanks to Disney Star Wars, Coca-Cola is now officially canon.
Hmm.
But also keep in mind, in Chilean Star Wars, so is beer.
Cerveza Cristal.
Yeah, don't
So
give them
you have,
credit. I think that's actually a cute way to throw in commercials, to be
yeah.
honest.
So they do. Though the Empire, the rebels do have the ability to decipher Imperial codes with limited success. They have about a 15% chance to break the civil codes and 5% under 5% for military.
Which, hey, that's still pretty good, given that the Empire has an entire galaxy worth of people to revise and make new codes.
Oh, and here's some intelligence slang. Busy stormtrooper. Father in Alliance intelligence. Mother is case officer. Orphan to disband the network. 23er, an agent who has made 20 field assignments and has been retired, or any competent agent.
Vaccinate to remove known Imperial agents. Poison Imperial intelligence.
Yeah,
Toxic, infiltrated by Imperial intelligence agents. Also, yeah, the orphan to disband a network, which leaves the agents in the field to die. Mm.
yeah.
Busted vac
So,
suit, blown cover. I love
yep,
the slang. It's really
yeah.
nice touches that like this.
So you have interrogation. Um, they're forbidden by law and common decency from using the harsh methods of the imperial counterparts. They're still effective in getting the truth, employing scanners, psychologists, undercover operatives, alien telepaths, truth drugs, and admittedly the threat of violence.
Oh yeah, low key. While they don't go to the extent the ISB does, that doesn't mean they can just have. That doesn't mean they don't have assets where they can just essentially send you on a nightmare trip with hallucinogens and then just gaslight you until you sob and give all the info you have.
Put them, I'd say, put them in a room with a and have them play a game with a Wookiee that has a very sore loser.
I'm just now envisioning. I'm just now envisioning during off time Chewbacca serving in like the interrogation quarters, just like looking at the chessboard, and then looking at the new victim that is off volunteering information. Each time you provide a little information, Chewbacca will let you actually take a piece. But you got to keep playing, or he'll slowly rip your arm off.
Yep.
Because
Uh,
hey, they might not use interrogation probes, they might not use torture droids, but they're not above doing other things.
then there's equipment, bugging, scanners, holocams, untraceable poisons, responsible for analyzing and countering Imperial intelligence in the field. These are
But
also the lab guys. These are your what was James Bond's
they're Q.
yeah, they're Q.
But here's the best part. One of their things are their active trolls. They legitimately, one of the things they love to do is bug the areas that are most likely to cause embarrassing information to get leaked. And then they play it back over the base's holo channel or comms room for everyone to laugh at. They legitimately are like, "Hey, check it out. Look at this embarrassing info we got on this intelligence officer or this moff." And then you just insert the stupid things that they do.
I was just, sir, we have a meeting between Nick Fuentes and Emperor Palpatine. Why is Palpatine wearing cat ears?
And I was envisioning, sir, we have Grand Moff Tomlin on. We have Grand Moff Tomlin info, and then you just hear him yelling into a phone like, "For 8 fucking years."
We've been prank calling him for 8 years on the HoloNet, and he still doesn't know it's us. He thinks it's the other Moth sector. We've caused a civil war between the Empire because of this idiot.
Hey, listen to this. Get away from that HoloNet. I'm cutting it down.
So then the analysis is obviously taking all the data from cryptology, interrogation operations, and determining what is true and what is false.
Because the ISB also is pretty decent. They're not as good as the Rebel Alliance in cranking out fake news, but you know.
And the Empire is not, you know, not
It's
unknown to throw their own soldiers under the bus. They could give up soldiers and have them get killed in order to bait the rebels.
Oh yeah, more than once has the ISB. And it's not just like one. They'll legitimately send like an entire, not necessarily army, but like an actual battle unit just to get slaughtered like pigs with fake documents and stuff.
And then operations are the field agents, spying, infiltration, blackmail, subversion, assassination.
Oh, and some of those rooms that are bugged, if the Empire finds out about it, they'll make up. They'll like pretend that, oh no, we still don't know. Like that's something that analysis has to be very careful about. It's one of the most important aspects of their organization.
And the reason why they were called the 23er, because you had a 23% chance of surviving those 20 missions.
Which is a slight nod to, if you're wondering, this is actually not an intelligence thing. It's more of a bomber pilot. It's more of a bomber crew mission parameter. Yeah, bombers in World War II, high casualty counts, ridiculously high.
Yep.
Depending on the person in the unit, depending on each plane, your death rate per mission was between 9 to, I believe, 38%.
Whoa.
Funnily enough, one of the most safe positions was the ball gunner. However, they also had one of the higher potential casualty rates, just because the ball gunner, if the machine malfunctioned or if the landing gear got damaged, they're dead.
Yeah.
They're just dead because they can't retract.
Uh,
I
but
believe
after the
it is the side gunners that had the highest casualty rates. I mean, ridiculous. We're talking like 1 out of 3 dead
oh,
per mission.
and considering they're in the body of the plane, it's no surprise. But they're also, after 20 missions, legally barred from further field duty and are forced to take desk jobs.
Which, if you're wondering, is a nod to how the Allied pilot program worked. Unlike the Axis, which kept throwing their aces into fucking meat grinders, the Allies would actually, after you attained a certain level of veterancy, force you back so that you could teach others the tricks that allowed you to do the things you did.
No, our aces must be able to fly.
I think the most giga-brained of them, though, goes to Germany, which legitimately they took their flight school students and had them pilot the Fallschirmjäger drop planes. I'm not
Wait, you
even
mean
kidding. That's something they fucking did.
so they had them fly paratroopers?
And transport planes, yes.
Well, transport planes, I mean, they were probably thinking less combat, or were they thinking, yes, throw them in the meat grinder?
More like they were used to promote air supply. Like one of the dumber moments was when they actually sent them to air supply Stalingrad. Although the dumbest is the Fallschirmjäger drop operations, because yes, that was something that they did regularly. What the fuck, World War II Germany? Who'd have thought that having a crazy vegetarian with one testicle who was a
No,
monomaniacal maniac surrounded by drug addicts, degenerates, and monsters would lead to an incompetent fucking military? Who'd have thought that you'd have awful idiots that would fuck up, and that the only people that even remotely knew what to do was the actual original general officers? There's a reason why the Empire in the original trilogy has a lot of Nazi vibes. Palpatine being how he is a very strong nod to the type of higher ups you'd get in Nazi Germany.
yeah, don't forget the Grand Admirals. Thrawn was the best of them, most of them were political appointees and were either complete loyalists or insane. I do recall one guy
Or no, not
upon
only that, but a lot of them just cut their teeth by killing civilians. Like
no,
legitimately, it wasn't until the rebellion really got into swing that they even had serious army experience at that point.
like I do remember there's one Imperial Grand Admiral that upon hearing the death of the Emperor plunged his Star Destroyer into a sun.
Yep.
But back onto the rebellion.
By the way, the guy who did that, he declared the operation. I believe Disney actually used the term he used for his operation to send himself into the sun as the term for Palpatine lost. Now it's time to destroy the Empire.
Palpatine is dead. Billions must die.
I'm not even kidding. In
Yep.
the Disney canon, Palpatine had a "I'm dragging the entire galaxy with me" scenario.
And they'll forget about it after like 30 years.
Then I'll come
Yeah.
back just fine.
And I'll announce it through a video game.
I'll announce it through fucking Fortnite.
So back on. So you have systems ops, immobile intelligence networks. Uh,
Oh, hey, look, this is
that
from a storyboard.
yeah, that's got to be Macquarie, I think.
It's a Macquarie storyboard, I think.
But then you have coordinate, which are the ones that coordinate operations that are important, more important than systems operations. So infiltration of high value targets,
One of the highest values being Comp Nor.
Compnor, Imperial Intelligence, Navy corporations, um, limiting a chance of infection. The sector intelligence network will often not be informed of the coordinate's activities,
Yep.
uh, or called upon for diversionary operations. Passive, this is the firepower division. They are formed by ex-militaries. They're elite special forces assigned to missions where combat is considered likely. Kidnapping, assaults on prisons, heavily armed bases, communication stations. They are they are also made to perform assassination attempts. Mothma is opposed to them, but she's reluctant to agree. They have made several attempts on Vader's life with predictable results because he's a fucking Sith Lord.
Also, passive operations. I think they play around a little bit with that in Andor, with like the prison stuff.
Uh, no, I mean the prison stuff is its own thing, but there is the whole thing of when Andor completes his mission, the rebels are wondering should we terminate him because he's no longer active. We can't trust his allegiance. Do we
Fair
terminate this
enough.
guy?
Yeah, that was probably a nod to that because again, the dude actually did when he was making his show look up some stuff from Star Wars. He may not have cared, but again, he at least gave some minimal effort.
And then you have obviously counterintelligence. You have security. Security is the one that recruits, and then retrieval. Retrieving. Uh, oh, if someone
I do
suspects
find it disturbing that even Mon Mothma doesn't know how many operative security has.
she's wrong. Two aides of her agents, and the woman she suspects is not one of them.
I feel like this is almost setting yourself up for another massive failure.
The thing is that I believe intelligence is highly loyal. Like that, this is an all volunteer thing. They're motivated.
I'm aware, but in the aftermath, you're kind of set up in this scenario a Praetorian Guard scenario.
Well, do remember, the war didn't end till like 20 years after Episode 6.
Fair enough.
Uh,
It's weird how little you see left from the Clone War era military. Yeah,
yeah, because it got absorbed into the Empire.
yeah, it kind
Like
of did.
the, the because the clone army did become the Imperial Army. It
The Stormtrooper armor is based off of Clone Trooper armor, yeah.
Yeah. So then we have finally the Alliance military, which has a very loose structure.
Also, the battle chant of the Legion of Alderaan, which is just describing what they're going to do.
Which must have been made before or after Episode 5, because they reference Why are they referencing Tatooine even? There was no battle on Tatooine.
No fucking clue.
Uh,
It
so,
might be a nod to. Well, the problem is it can't be after episode 6.
well, it could have been Lord Hoth. No, no, it can't be. It, it is also called the Legion of Alderaan. I have no idea what that is.
The idea, I know, I have a very strong idea. It's basically people that were off world when it got blown up. Again, I mentioned, like, if I was Alderani and I was part of the Empire, if as soon as I heard my planet was blown up, I would have just fucking left.
So, I guess within the Alliance High Command, you have the Commander-in-Chief, Chief of Staff, and the Supreme Allied Commands: Fleet Commander, Ordnance Supply, Starfighter Command, Support Services, Intel, Spec Forces, and Sector Command. Mon Mothma is also the Commander-in-Chief, as well as the Chief of State.
She describes her own position as more of a chairman of the board than a soldier.
Because unlike Organa, she isn't a military fighter.
I know it's not that relevant, but it's bizarre that they left that there. It's again, you got to remember that the prequels kind of came around decades after the OT. So George had very different ideas when he was making them than he did when he was making the OT.
There was initial ideas that like the Clone Wars was a war between clones. Like it wasn't just one clone army; it was multiple.
Yeah, that was one. Other ideas that I should note: planet names changed all the time. The way you ran into Anakin, like the entire prequel trilogy, was very different too.
Anakin and Vader were originally supposed to be separate people.
They were. Also, if I recall correctly, Mace Windu was in early scripts as Anakin's mentor.
Hmm.
Or I
Interesting.
might be confusing because George kept changing idea outlines for what he described as the prequel episode. Because originally it wasn't going to be a prequel trilogy. It was supposed to just be like one movie and then OT and then the next saga series. And then
That,
after that, he expanded the one prequel movie to 3.
and then we're gonna do the future movies where we have them going on the Microforce, meet the midichlorians.
I'm going to be frank, that would have also been dog shit.
Oh God, yeah.
That would have also been bad. It just
But I'm
would have
blended.
likely had better high points, like more high
Though, though,
points.
though, imagine that 90s graphics. It would have been 90s graphics in Star Wars, not
No, no. Also, don't forget that the major antagonist of that sequel trilogy would have included Darth Talon, which was basically a red Twi'lek babe.
she's gonna be half naked
Yeah,
because
if I
there's
remember
no
right,
panties in space.
each character design of that character I think had less clothing.
It's a movie for children.
It's a movie for children. Cuts Count Dooku's head off after disarming him. See Anakin burning alive with his flesh searing off, screaming, "I hate you," as he screams in agony.
The implication of child murder,
You know, strangling Padme.
strangling your wife, the inflammate the organs of a cyborg catching on fire,
Oh yeah, you see Grievous's organs cook, and then his own head explodes with his brain matter popping out.
political drama as an entire republic
Oh,
dies.
don't forget the CC footage of Anakin murdering children.
I don't think it was children. It was just other Jedi he murdered.
No, he killed children. You saw a child get shot in the back by clone troopers too.
Oh yeah, child murder.
Like if I
Which which
recall, you
which
see
I
a
believe
child
was
get shot in the back, and like their corpse fling off the edge.
yeah, and I believe that's Lucas's son.
It was.
Hey son, I'm gonna have you killed in this movie.
Speaking of which, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show has a really fucked up bit with the Grand Inquisitors keeping pickled Jedi's remains. One of them is the
No,
corpse of that child.
what the fuck? Why?
Because we needed to make sure they looked evil.
They're Sith. They're Dark Jedi. They have red lightsabers. That kind of gives it away.
What are you talking about? How could I know that the people who artificially created a war that lasted multiple years, that killed bi- uh, basically billions of people, just to ensure that one guy would always stay in power no matter which side won? Who'd have thought that guy's evil? You know, the guy who took a grieving widower, intentionally sabotaged his ship, took his broken carcass, and basically gaslit him into blaming the Jedi for killing him, for trying to kill him, after basically setting it up so that they would intervene to aid the enslaving bug monsters that were slaughtering his people.
I'd say pretty cool guy.
Yeah,
But
General Grievous is a great character. It's just a shame George Lucas, for some fucking reason, wanted to make him a mustache twirler. He low key. One of the fun things about each of the Sith characters in the prequels, besides Sidious, they're all aspects of what Anakin was gonna become. Like, if you combined Maul, Dooku, and Grievous, you got Vader. That was kind of the idea. And Grievous is kind of the closest to Anakin because he was the test run. He legitimately was designed to be a prototype to set up for Sidious's apprentice. That's the most fucked up part, if you think about it.
yeah,
He was the test run to make an always frail, a powerful but frail subordinate that you can just kill with one touch.
and we're gonna put your organs on the outside, not
Uh,
not encase them, not hide them. We're just gonna keep it on the outside.
by the way, if you're wondering how Disney canon fucked up Grievous a little bit, they actually made him bitter. One of the reasons he hated the Jedi was he didn't have enough Force potential to join them. That's an actual Disney lore moment.
And in the expanded universe, it was because the Republic never helped him because the invading species made the native Kalish look like they were attacking them.
Yeah, actually, the best part is he was kicking the Huck's ass so bad, they ran to the Republic, calling the Kalish terrorists, and they sent legitimately an army of Republic troopers and Jedi to basically enforce, not just Disney tried to whitewash it by just saying by enforcing peace. No, they did reprisal wars against the Kali. That's why Grievous hated the Jedi so much, because the Jedi were, while they didn't enjoy it, they were a part of the Kalish genocide.
God damn it, Disney.
Oh, here's another fucked up moment from General Grievous, because again, I genuinely find him probably, besides Count Dooku, the most fascinating character from the prequels. Like, both of them are really amazing, and it's a shame. Well, here's the best part: George Lucas fucked up both Dooku and Grievous, because rather than being these interesting characters, he had to make them mustache twirlers. And Dave Filoni definitely fucking loved that. That's why Grievous lost to Jar Jar Binks of all people. Though to be fair, Jar Jar was a general.
Yes, he was a general and a senator.
So it's not actually, if you really think about it, like, yeah, Grievous is made to be out to be this loser, idiot, incompetent. But who does he usually fight in the Clone Wars? Obi-Wan. You know, the best defensive duelist the Jedi ever made.
So,
Like,
yeah,
legitimately, he was a master of, I believe it's Sorosu is the defensive form.
yes, I think it's source.
He is the best specialist in that doctrine the Jedi ever made. Grievous basically whipped the ass of every other Jedi he fucking fought, except for 3. And the only 3 that were ever able to beat him was Mace Windu, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Kit Fisto, actually.
I think also Kiadi. No, wait,
No,
no,
he
he's
almost
Atheist.
killed he almost killed Mundi. If it wasn't for the Republic Commandos, he would have killed him.
No, hold on. They're not. Those are ARC troopers. They're different.
ARC troopers, yeah. Either way,
But
it doesn't matter. He had him dead to rights.
so, but we're talking about the Clone Wars. We need to be talking about the
Yeah,
Galactic
we're
Civil
talking
War.
about the Clone Wars. I'm sorry, but like, there's some real
Yeah,
cool shit.
yeah.
If you kind of parse out of, weirdly enough, it's like a case where the lore is better than the movies. So if you like look at the comics and shit, you get some really cool stuff.
Clone Wars multimedia project, that era. That's
Tartakovsky
what.
Wars. The best part is Tartakovsky had no clue. He just knew what General Grievous's design was, and he was like, "I know how to introduce the character: serial killer, slasher movie villain."
Yeah.
Sorry,
Um.
sorry. It's just
So
like
yeah.
we're talking about great shit. Let's
So the
continue talking about great shit because the Rebel
so yeah
Alliance is cool.
yeah. So the fleet commander is obviously Admiral Akbar
Oh, and before one last question about the Clone Wars: did Anakin and Grievous fight? No, the entire point was Grievous and Anakin never met.
because of the line "You're shorter than I," or
He
was it?
never
No, it
knew.
was
He never
older.
knew.
I think. No, he said it was older, even though he could look on a fucking HoloNet.
Like he never really met Anakin. Mainly because one of the whole point of the character is he's supposed to be kind of the proto Vader. Like he is what Anakin will become.
Yep. So next up though
Oh, by the
is
way, this leads to the funny bit in Clone Wars. Like this is one of the weird things that Dave Filoni had to do for Clone Wars. He always had to make it so Anakin never ran into Grievous. That's why there's a lot of goofy moments where like Grievous is like, "Oh, I'll defeat you next time." Leaves and then Anakin runs up right when the door closes. What's happened? Like that happens multiple times.
so the back on to this. So the ordnance and supply is responsible for procuring equipment, military, and foodstuffs. Uh, though they concentrate on the more difficult items, because Sector Command is supposed to supply food and arms. So the
Again, because the
oh,
Rebel Alliance is very decentralized, they're kind of expected to bring some of their own kit.
yep.
These are the guys though that are supposed to scream, "How the fuck are we going to make sure everyone has the rations to keep fighting?
And how do we procure our starships?
And how do we stop Porkins from eating all of our fucking food?"
So, and next up though is the Starfighter Command, responsible for training the pilots, operating, controlling over wings that are the rogue wings, not assigned to uh, permanently assigned to sectors.
That's what the term Rogue Squadron means. It means basically an independent squadron that's supposed to be shifted around based on what's needed in the war effort.
Then you have your support systems or support services, which is repairs, cooks, doctors. Navy has their own intelligence and has their own special forces, which is about 10 divisions. And
We've already
remember, this
kind
is
of
for the
covered intelligence already.
yeah. Well, this is for the galaxy. 10 divisions for an entire army that's supposed to be galactic.
I mean, it is a resistant. The whole thing is they're a resistant cell, so it's not too surprising.
And then you have your sector commands.
Oh, special forces. No, no, no. The special forces are the. Wait, really? These are your ground troops? Really?
Well, spec force. They're to defend high command are attached to the fleet.
I feel like they don't understand what special forces mean. No, no offense.
Yeah.
That's a little silly. That's a little silly.
And then you have what your fleet command looks like. You have your admirals, your line admirals, your starfighter command. You have ships of the line, close support ships, pickets, defense wings. Though they do say what the special forces are later on. The ground units attached to Alliance High Command.
No, I'm
So,
aware. It's a little weird that like for some reason in the Star Wars universe, they describe the ground pounders as these super elite units.
well, so like Marines, the ones assigned to guard Hoth base are special forces or
No,
spec
I'm
forces.
fair, but I'm fair. I'm fine with that. It's just this is something that's kind of intrinsically a fucking problem in Star Wars. Your ground pounders are all these super elite forces all the time. Because the stormtroopers were not even supposed to be the ground pounders. They were supposed to be a similar role of special forces.
Although again, I do like what ended up happening in the expanded universe, where as time went on and they didn't have that many stormtroopers left, they just started giving the regular troopers the stormtrooper uniforms.
Which fits. I mean, I'm okay with that, where it's just that's the traditional uniform for the army. It's just
But
kind of
yeah,
a little silly that you're like, oh yeah, these are all elite trooper. No.
Solo was the only one that I think actually got this correct.
If everyone's super, then no one's super. That's why I don't like the special forces being for all land units. If you want them to be the special forces that are either sent to commit sabotage or like they're part of the cells that do damage or they're attached to commanders to defend them, sure, that's fine, but you should probably have a delineation between the two. I'm not
Yeah.
dinging like this book. I'm dinging Star Wars in general for this. It's a
Yeah,
minor issue I have with it.
I guess the I guess the thing they're going with is that they're able to be rapidly deployed and do a variety of different tasks.
Well,
Like they have,
that just makes them space dragoons if you really think
yeah.
about it.
Well, look on the next page. We've got space paratroopers.
So yeah, line admirals. These are the ones that command ships. Ordnance support we've already covered. Fleet intelligence covers navy aspect. Starfighter command, which yep, they run the X wings and Y wings and A wings and shit like that. Spec forces. Here we go. They're the finest ground troopers in the alliance and possibly the galaxy. They're fully equipped, handling a variety of missions. As Marines, they also provide base security, which I find funny because this would be like having an MP be the equivalent of a Navy SEAL. Which, to be fair, given that they constantly have to bug out and move to different areas because they don't have stable supply lines or fronts, I get it makes sense. I'm just kind of making fun of that.
So yeah,
What
you've got
else
the
are they able to
Marines,
do? Yep.
you've got Pathfinders, urban guerrillas, wilderness fighters, technicians.
Fair enough. It's just I find it weird that all your ground pounders are special forces. There's just something intrinsically kind of dumb about that, you know?
Other
What what
infiltrators.
what Hoi 4 special forces only bullshit gimmick are you doing? What Mountaineer only? Okay. The fuck, bro?
Mountaineer only, and I'm playing as what would be the flattest terrain as a country in Africa that
To be
has no
fair to the
mountains.
rebels, they're so small that ground pounders that they probably have to be the equivalent of special forces to go up against the Empire. So this actually does remind me of something that is something that you should note. Stormtroopers, despite their reputation of having terrible aim, if you actually count how many shots they make versus how many people they drop, I believe they have 10 times the accuracy of your average soldier.
They just aren't able to hit our main characters
It's
because
plot.
they'd
It's
be
a bit
dead.
of plot armor, and even then, they're still a big threat. The only time that their threat actually kind of gets made fun of is when they lose against the Ewoks, which is dumb. It is a bit dumb, but it's a bit of a nod to the Vietnam War, and it's also a bit of a nod that even against the greatest of all threats, plucky courage and guerrilla warfare can defeat a full-on like mechanized menace, like a full
Also,
professional army.
they fight against some tough stuff in the cartoons and the movies.
Yeah, but I don't usually acknowledge those at all. Not because
At
they're
least
not because
at
it's
least
mostly because I've
acknowledge the
never seen them.
droids one, where the one where R2D2 actually gets a girlfriend.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough. The Droids cartoons is a lot better than the Ewok one.
Yeah. So there are more special forces. You've got infiltrators, heavy weapon specialists, pilots, transportation specialists.
Oh, I actually do love the paratroopers. It feels weird for Star Wars to have them, but there's
I
something
know.
magical about that.
It's so goofy.
It's so goofy, but I like it. I feel like they should. I feel like what they should do is this is where you have the they fly now guys. Just give them little jet packs.
No, you need to look at the old Republic jump packs.
Yeah, I think if you made them jump troopers,
Oof.
like jump pack troopers, that'd be fine.
Um,
Oh, and here's the thing. I make fun of the Ewoks, but you got to keep in mind they're also flesh eaters. Like they are man eaters, and
they're
despite
also
being
the
small, they're
indigenous.
relatively strong for their size.
And again, there are some terrifying things on the forest moon of Endor.
Also, and if you're wondering why they're strong for their size, because originally they were supposed to be Wookiee slaves. Originally, the Ewoks were supposed to be Wookiee slaves, but then George was like, I have an interesting idea. Because metaphorically, you have this great evil empire power who is so confident, and then they lose to caveman teddy bears. Something that you don't think would have the ability. Like he's kind of playing up the Yoda thing again, where you don't expect these little guys to be able to do it.
And again, they knew machinery. They were able to make various traps. They knew the land.
Yeah,
They're
like
fucking
they're no,
terrifying.
they are much more terrifying than you should really think. Like than you'd really think. Yeah, Pathfinder's pretty cool. Here's the urban gorillas. Oh, I love that they even have the hover tank. Like they're just hiding out from that hover attack repulsor tank.
Yeah, the other specialists. You got the spec forces, which actually one of them knifes a stormtrooper in the throat.
They look like teddy bears, so I can't take them seriously. Oh, you're like me with the time Yoda actually pulls out a lightsaber and begins fighting. That just like, I'm sorry, George, you tried your best, but that's fucking ridiculous, man. No offense, that just looks so dumb. That looks so dumb, especially since this happens after he basically spanks the shit out of Obi-Wan and Anakin. I'm sorry, it just looks dumb. But yeah, wilderness fighters. So these are your equivalent of of army rangers. Then you got technicians, which are your mechanics. Infiltrators, which are just commandos, heavy
Yep.
trooper specialists. Again, I don't think I would call these guys special forces. They're not quite what I'd expect for special forces in terms of names.
Well, then the
I mean,
then
fair enough. The infiltrators would I would say classify.
yeah.
I would also say the Pathfinders and Marines definitely would as well. But the
So
others, not so much. They're just specialty troopers. This would be like calling light infantry. Oh yeah, they're special forces. No, the whole point of it is they just don't have a lot of equipment. The whole thing is they're supposed to move light and rapidly.
yeah. So I guess next up after all this, they bring up
I do
then
like though that they classified the troops by the special like assignments that they're usually given. I kind of
yeah.
like that. It reminds me a little bit of how 40K does that sort of stuff too with the Imperial Guard.
Yeah. So next though is they bring up the example of the Atravis sector as an example of how a sector would operate.
Creations of sector forces, like their political opposites, the sector forces create out of whatever organizations are in place. So yeah, let's take a look. So the growth of Atravis, this is the sector that they're kind of focusing on because this is kind of the region that I believe several of the early adventures for this game took place in.
So you have the commander-in-chief, Trevia Chan, uh, principal architect of allying the Fest Resistance Group with the Mantuan Liberators. She's a chief of staff, Loom Karplin, surviving founding member of the Mantuan Liberators. Then Starfighter Command. What's interesting, they have 36 fighters, but they can only keep about 18 in an offensive operation at one time.
Well, yeah, because you have to replace parts, you have to do maintenance, you also have to. Well, actually, hyperfuel's not really a thing in this time period at all.
No,
They
but it's
still have to do maintenance.
but think about how many ships the Empire can carry. This is an entire sector.
It really does show you the disparity because remember when we covered the Empire source book, I think they're able to casually shit out like 10 times that number.
Yeah,
Like I believe their average fighter or bomber wing is about it's at least double.
and we've seen the movies. They just swarm.
Yeah, I'd have to look back, but I don't remember the exact number, but I know they're massively outnumbered. And I do like the nice touch that in on paper they have X amount. In reality, either due to missing parts or breakdowns or just dead pilots with lack of training, you just don't have that. I like that. That's actually a little bit of realism people tend to forget about.
Oh, there's also within this staff a Wookiee named Basora, who's got a robot eye,
That's always a good pick.
and a wing commander Varth.
This guy looks like the sort of person that wait, is that Star Wars is that Star Wars Ted Bundy?
Oh my God.
Do we have a serial killer as our wing commander?
Well, that explains the lack of female pilots.
We might have a serial killer wing commander. I
Then,
love I
yeah,
love Basura's art. That's really fun.
yeah. Then there's what was it? The General Krill. I think is in charge of intelligence.
Let me take a look. He might be the Sekord guy actually. No, he is not. I think you are right. I think he is the supply guy.
And then
Oh no,
obviously
no,
the
no. Actually, it's the Outer Rim Communication Center. He's the comms officer.
and so on Fest, Fest apparently is a more densely populated planet, so it's a lot of urban guerrilla warfare, while Mantuine is lightly populated. So you've got several cities uh, where people are clustered around, and it's actually less important to the Imperials, so they devote less resources to it.
However, because it's more urbanized, there are a lot more Imperial assets, which make it a lot harder to actually sneak in and around.
Yeah, that's actually a good setup for a sector you can play around in.
Yep. If you're wondering, Fest, the average commando units between 5 to 20 men. They are usually completely independent. They're also basically just usually part-timers. If you ever wanted to play a Star Wars equivalent to Shadowrun, I would play it on Fest.
Well, no, I'd play it on Nal Hutta.
Now Hutta would also work too.
Or no, Nar Shaddaa. I think Nar Shaddaa is the one you can go on. Nal Hutta, you can't go on unless you're hot.
Also, Fest is going through some major unrest. In particular, the planetary government is the Fest police force actually has a high turnover rate because dealing with these guys are such a pain in the ass. As for how Mantuine works, very different. They actually have a full-on army, and they're going full guerrilla warfare in the mountains.
Because they can. But on to
The
the
government army is composed mostly of those being drafted to the service at gunpoint, commanded by Imperial officers.
so yeah, they could take over Mantuine, I think, fairly quickly.
I actually like that slight nod to that. Hey, combat starships, here we go.
So this is the orders this day from Mon Mothma to Akbar. Number one, avoid battle. Under no circumstances is the fleet to engage the enemy, and if the fleet is discovered, you must evacuate the system immediately. You're to send a detailed report upon the state of the fleet, complete the training of the fleet, reorganize the fleet replenishment, maintain a high level of morale, organize raiding forces, and also be prepared to go to battle within a month's notice.
Also, complete the training of the fleet after sending a detailed report. Which, again, really shows you that, yeah, the Rebel Alliance, it's very decentralized, meaning that if you want large-scale operations, you actually have to do further training to make sure different parts of your units actually listen to you. That is something that you have to maintain, that you have to note.
And then we have how they acquire starships. Now you have the Mon Calamari starship construction fleets, but uh, the defensive fleet really couldn't take on an Imperial attack fleet and survive.
Well,
It's on,
because Mon Calamari can make ships really fast, and they're pulling overtime shifts and doing like insane work, work outputs. Even with that, though, they can only make like a frigate or a corvette a month, or a cruiser every 6.
compare
Like
that
they,
to the
they just
Empire,
don't
who
have the
can
output.
yeah, the Empire can flush out, through Quat, Fondor, Corellia. They just have too much manufacturing capacity. But then there's the other way, defection. Crews either from the Empire or elsewhere defect.
Which let's think about it from your point of view. Like let's say you're one of the smaller ships, like you're not necessarily a star destroyer, but you're one of the escort ships. Let's say you witness the bombardment of a planet and you're listening to them scream as they get blown up. There's a chance that you might just say fuck this and take the ship, mutiny with a good chunk of your crew.
And
It's
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
unsurprising that this happens quite often.
they give an example of the Imperial frigate Liberator. With the complicity of his crew and officers, the captain was able to take the vessel to a rendezvous with a rebel force. Something happened while the hyperspace and it arrived as a complete wreck. Oh, this is dumb. This is where the Navy is sabotaging those that defect.
Because it would look bad if they ever had that happen.
And now we come up with actual tactics of so when they're fighting, you've got the capital ships, your starfighters, um, your fast attack vessels and patrol craft, your corvettes, your frigates,
We
your
actually kind
cruise.
of cover this with the Imperial Navy somewhat, but they go into a bit more detail because unlike the Empire, the rebels
The
kind of have what they have. That's kind of all they got.
and they have to be craftier. So they give a composition of a battle line and how they would be used.
Also, here is an interesting note. Capital ship fire arcs between a Mon Calamari cruiser and an Imperial Star Destroyer. Note the massive difference in ability.
Like the Imperial Star Destroyers, by their design, have a bigger broadside.
They do. The thing that the Mon Calamari have in terms of advantage is they can also lightly fire on the bottom. Like they have secondary guns that can attack from top and bottom. Star Destroyers don't, but it's just they have so much throw weight it doesn't matter. Like that just kind of gives you an idea that yeah, even like they're just outgunned. You have to be smart.
And they show even the battle zone of firepower, like that. Pretty much once you're in the primary zone, which is 20,000 meters. Uh, this is where starfighters have the advantage.
Yep. One
You
of the
you want
things
your
that the rebels realized early on is it's a lot easier to get a bunch of starfighters to go into a knife fight than it is to try to do a throw weight, try to do broadside throw weights.
actually on the page 55 they do show the different maneuvers or the how the fleet looks. Your picket lines, your close support, cruisers, various battle line maneuvers such as the exchange, which is just fighting with broadsides, capping the T, which is there's a bunch of ships moving in one direction, you intersect it. The Akbar slash, which is where you line your troops so that it's repeated broadsides on the enemies. And then finally the brawl,
By
just
the way,
close up
the
engagement.
reason the Akbar slash is such a dangerous maneuver, since I'm looking at that, you're basically relying on them trying to not hit each other.
The
Because
problem is, yeah, the problem is you're in space.
also the other problem is you're basically crossing your T. You're basically allowing them to get full broadside on both sides.
Yeah.
Like you can easily fuck yourself and destroy yourself on that.
And then finally the fake, which is where you look like you're about to engage in a, I guess, something of like an exchange, but you instantly flip, so you are firing your full broadside while they're only facing your front.
Basically, brawls are what usually happens if the line starts breaking apart. This is where you try to pretend that you're about to turn it into a free for all, which favors the Imperials because they just have like yes, technically Mon Calamari cruisers can attack from below, but remember, Star Destroyers have far stronger cannonry.
Yeah.
So this is a way to try to get a few sneaky extra shots because you have way more throw weight when you do that.
And then they give an example of or at least the details of a Mon Calamari Star Cruiser.
They're legitimately the only cruisers that they have.
And here's what they only come stock with 36 fighters.
Well, I mean, they're just trash in general because here's the thing about Mon Calamari cruisers. They're They originally were pleasure craft that were heavily reworked into cruisers. Like, these were designed to be luxury liners, essentially.
Hence why they kind of really don't look military.
They weren't. The reason why they're so effective, like, the reason that they're so effective, though, is entirely due to training. They're
Yeah.
highly motivated, and they have some of the best gunnery officers. They have some of the best gunnery officers and soldiers in the Rebel Alliance.
You have you have the Rebel assault frigates, which are modified dreadnought cruisers, and they
Also, another thing about Mon Calamari ships, each one is a bit different because unlike the Empire, they're built by artisan. They're built in an artisan way. Basically, each shipyard has its own style.
that's definitely helpful when you're in a military. You need to know them
Well,
how a
because
ship
again,
operates.
they were not designed for combat. They were designed for exploration or pleasure cruises, basically. They were one part
Uh,
space liner and one part exploratory vessel. They were not designed to be actually combat ships. It's just they're surprisingly pretty good about them.
and they bring this up with also with the Rebel assault frigates. So the dreadnoughts, which they're based on, required a crew of 16,000 to operate. This is not practical for the Alliance. The Rebel assault frigate is crew is 5,000, and so much of it is automated.
Which again is another nod to Mon Calamari ships being a lot better than what the Imperials gave them.
Same thing with the bulk cruisers. You know, with your Karelian gunships like your Nebulon B frigate. If you remember in episode 6, the medical frigate,
Yep.
which that is a horrible ship because it has that thin line holding it together.
Well, the whole purpose is they're not designed to land on atmosphere. They're just space only.
Yeah.
The rebels tend to modify these to carry either more fighters or to actually serve as in a pinch battle cruisers.
And like the escort frigate, crew 920. Like,
Yeah, you lose one of these, you're gonna be hurting.
your Karelian gunships, your Karelian corvettes, which actually they do have a nice deck layout of the Tantive 4.
Also, the best part about a Corellian gunship, it is literally mostly gun. It is over half gun.
And then like on page 66, that they show you the size of these ships, and a Mon Calamari cruiser is about the same size as a Star Destroyer.
And unlike a Star Destroyer, it wasn't initially designed for military applications. In fact, actually, since I was looking at it, I will note that the Cals actually fucking hated modifying these things to be combat craft. Basically, because they had to redesign the exterior, they actually hate how it looks now.
But there is this thing with the Rebel effect where it is just very ugly, not very clean, but practical.
In fact, the Nebulon B was an Imperial convoy protector. In fact, one Imperial captain raged at that fact at one point. Huh.
Hmm,
Let me take a look, because I didn't take a good look at that Nebulon V.
let me see.
I like how it looks like a gun. Oh, man.
Uh, yeah, it is a medical frigate. Maybe that's another lore.
Also, there's a quad laser. I like that they have this little engineering mechanism to show how a quad laser looks.
Also, I do like they have a little image of the actual Tantive 4 miniature.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
But then next up is the Starfighters.
Which legitimately form the bulk of the
Yeah,
Rebel Alliance. Also, a lot of starfighters got their start in the Imperial academies
yeah.
because it's pretty easy to pick up training and then just
Leave.
bolt. Yeah.
Yeah. So The objective of a starfighter is space denial. It is to deny control of space to the Empire's forces, not the control of space itself. Starfighters require a staggering amount of fuel to operate and equally staggering amount of expensive maintenance to keep in space.
Again, there's a reason why they kind of describe that one organization can only keep half of them going.
Therefore, they operate from hidden bases, or they are far from Imperial scrutiny, so they concentrate on harassment, hit and run attacks rather than attempting to defeat the enemy outright.
Yep, they're good at harassment. They also force lines of contact to be in more favor of the rebels. Also, reminder: even Star Destroyers have dead zones in their guns. If you can get around into the back, you can shoot at their engines and knock them out of commission.
Yep. Ah, the good old days of Battlefront 2.
Yeah, a good chunk of the alliance relies on these because it's just, yeah, they're expensive, but they punch well above their weight.
And then, in terms of acquisition, yeah, a lot of like the XCOM prototype was taken from the Incon Corporation when they defected. Lore-wise, Y-wings were used by the Republic, and the V-wing, I believe, ended up creating the A-wing, and the B-wing was Akbar's design.
Yeah, basically the Y-wing was an old Republic fighter that essentially, to kind of again nod to as nods to World War II, some plane designs actually turned out to be better for a different role than expected, or they had components that were designed for better things. A very fun fact: the first plane that MiG ever built actually was not it was good enough for the Soviets to produce, but it was a very poor performer in the roles that they were required because its high altitude engine did not do well for the plane type. That same engine, perfect for the IL-2 Sturmovik because the low atmo version is amazing.
Hmm. And they do bring up here the issue of quantity versus quality.
I believe there's a few times where a fighter craft actually turned out to be much better close air support too.
Hmm.
Basically,
Like,
get rid of the machine gun, slap on some cannons, and then just fucking nosedive down to start hitting troops with the cannons.
so, like, for instance,
That's how the Y-wing became more of a bomber.
the B-wing, for instance, far superior to what the Empire has. But because of intelligence and being caught unprepared, a entire squadron of B-wings were wiped out by the inferior TIE fighters. So it's not just quality or quantity; it's
It's
knowledge.
tactics.
Yeah. So supply expensive to fuel. eh, Most efficient fighters drain their power after a few short weeks of standard flying. The same amount of energy exerted in just under an hour of combat flight.
Hey, remember when they invented hyperspace fuels for Disney? Technically,
Yeah,
fuel isn't a thing. Fuel cells are a thing,
yeah. They do say here the fuel cells are refined plutonium-uranium mixes,
and
and
they
these
have to
cells
be
must.
twice as pure as Starship
Yep,
grade cells.
and
Yeah,
few
here's the
civilian.
thing. Here's the thing. Hyperfuel, like the hyperfuel thing from Solo, nah, that don't really make no sense. Cause they use nuclear fuel cells basically.
Yeah,
Now if you change the plot so that Han Solo had to blow up a hyper, had to blow up the uranium fuel cells, sure that would work. The concept makes sense. It's just like the hyper. Last Jedi also used this plot idea for some fucking reason.
hmm, yeah. Oh,
Because
I love what.
they kept going. We're running out of hyperspace fuel or whatever.
Yeah, I like what Coyote said. Just to bring it on to something actually good about Star Wars. The transport ships are actually the rarest ships in the Rebel fleet because the company went out of business that made them, which makes sense considering again how shit they look. Hey, I'm actually on Wikipedia right now. They filed for bankruptcy several years before the Battle of Yavin.
Yeah, they went out of business very quickly.
It's one of the things you do like about Star Wars, where it's like, yeah, they just went out of business, or they're manufacturing something on the cheap.
One of the funnier things I like is, despite being from a tribal society, General Grievous was able to build and design a better robot than the Trade Federation could. Because he was the one that actually designed the Magna Guards himself.
Yep. And then there's a little diagram of the
He
key.
also, low-key, when he saw the army he was given, he said, "What is this bullshit?" He was very angry when he realized how good the B1s were.
I'm wondering, why did he just go back to Kalish?
Oh, because when he got cyberized, his brain was partially cyberized as well.
Oh, oh yeah, they mutilated him.
From what I understand, it's a mixture of that. They don't. I think they kind of drop it, but like you could also kind of headcanon that he wouldn't want to show his face around his people again until he basically succeeded.
Well, what's funny is his name actually got, like, I guess, remembered by the Kalish, and he's worshipped as like an honored ancestor.
Oh, here's another fun fact. When Grand Admiral Thrawn went to Cali, as soon as he studied their culture, he just nuked them. He just started nuking them because, in his own words, "I've taken a look at what they think. They make no sense to me."
The Cal,
The Kalish were so insane to him. He was like, "Nah, I'm just nuking them."
but this does give me a fun idea of playing
He saw them as too chaotic and unpredictable.
I don't know, as a Jedi, like a Kalish Jedi that's being recruited in the Jedi Temple like 100 years after Episode 4, and it's like, I'm doing this in honor of Grievous, and
Wait, the Jedi killer? The what?
yeah, no, because in like the Legacy, uh, there are Jedi that survived Order 66, and I think ones that fought Grievous.
Yeah, there were.
They'll be like, I'm doing this to honor General Grievous, one of my most powerful ancestors. Oh,
Well, you
he
must have done.
murdered
You
General.
must have deserved it.
Do, do you not remember the time where he committed genocide against the Ugnaught population to teach a lesson to a bunch of younglings?
Yeah, it was a very important lesson.
And he was going to cyberize them as well?
Yeah, much like I remember when you guys let my people starve. Because that's the other thing. Kylie went through regular famines because the Huck kept intentionally withholding food resources and stealing what they could from the Kylie.
But back under the rebellion.
I
So
think
they
the Huck
bring up,
also ate them.
probably.
I know they enslaved them quite often.
Eh,
Like that's
sim-
what they that's the whole point. They like settled the colonies there so they could enslave them.
so they bring up that for an there's an hour of heavy maintenance required for each 10 minutes of combat flight time.
That actually sounds about right for like a World War II fighter plane.
Yeah. And most Alliance ships do not get as much maintenance as they require. Your squadron has been active combat for more than a week. Odds are they will suffer almost as many casualties from ship malfunction as from enemy
I
fire.
actually really love this section because this is really hardcore nitty gritty. This is very accurate to what it's like to deal with just heavy machinery in general, like
Though they
military
bring up
machinery.
the same thing applies to the Empire, but because the ties are so shit that it's easier to repair them. And
They're
it makes
easier to
sense.
repair, and also honestly, if it's too fucked up, you can just get another one. It's not
Yeah.
a big deal.
It makes sense. Like X wings, Y wings, they have shields. Ties don't.
Which actually leads to one of the things about military procurement. The more complicated your systems, the more complicated it is to maintain and repair them.
It's no wonder in like 40K, the standard template construct was made to basically be a template. You could build anything off of it.
Yep. Basically, the STC also has the benefit of modularity, because if you can build stuff off of it and model it off of it, that's less parts you have to manufacture.
Yep.
Like, yeah, the TIE fighter sucks, but you can turn it into a bomber. You,
So
you can convert it into a
yeah,
bomber. You can convert it into different roles.
they bring up then the sort of
Also, yes, Nick,
missions.
Grievous did nothing wrong. I actually have to agree with that.
I think, well, the Ugnaught genocide.
That's because he had to teach them a lesson. Also, remember his brain was roboticized and they one of the funny things that Disney decided to throw in, I think Lucas did as well, and it actually also explains why he turns into a cartoon villain so often. Dooku was actually intentionally modifying his behavior. Like every time Grievous would go to his sleeping pods, Dooku would on occasion order for his aggression levels to get driven up or to tweak his behaviors and mindsets. One of the other things they also stole from Grievous were most of his memories. Like overemphasized his hatred because he legitimately had essentially butcher's nails in his brains, which increased his hatred. Mangle and get rid of his ability to feel positive emotions. Legitimately, after the surgery, he could not find the ability to smile anymore or find joy,
Well, I mean,
except in
I don't
getting vengeance and slaughter.
I don't think he had much of a face anymore.
He didn't, but like he couldn't feel joy anymore. And last but not
Fuck
least,
the
a good chunk of his
IGB.
memories were scrambled.
Fuck Sam Hill and the IGB.
Oh, also keep in mind that one of the other factors for why Grievous signed his slave contract was solely so that they could get food. Because Sam Hill actually openly says we can undo the famine, which means he knew about the famine on Kali for years. He's only using it as a lever to get Grievous to agree.
Oh,
Also, if you really think about it, Palpatine likely was on the board that actually accepted the Republic's aiding the
yeah.
Huck. So, so
Yeah.
low key, Plagueis might have, because this is when Plagueis was still alive too. Keep in mind. Imagine Plagueis being like, okay, now we can fund Kelly because we now have our general for our war.
Yeah. So, though, now onto the various strategies and tactics. So, starfighters have attack missions, maybe defense missions, reconnaissance. But the other thing that's important, alliance fighters have hyperdrive.
They are.
The Empire doesn't.
This is
They
actually one of the reasons they're so damn expensive.
yeah, they can just go in, go out quickly without being detected.
This was also a lot designed so that Luke could just go to Dagobah in a
Yeah.
starfighter. Like low key, I think that's part of why they had hyperspace capabilities. Because George is like, I need to get him to see the little Muppet Man, voiced by my friend Frank. But it's like a little fighter ship. It's fine. It's fine. They all have hyperspace capabilities. Makes sense. And then he actually explains why it makes sense. And like, holy shit, George, that's smart. Yeah. I mean, wouldn't it make sense for guerrillas to be able to move their starfighters over short distances? Because you can attack one planet system nearby and then go back to your base, which is on another planet system. I mean, you're gonna burn through most of your nuclear fuel, but you know. So the main combat tactics include detection, closing, attack, maneuver, and disengagement. And what I actually low-key like is here is what it looks like. And I love that they actually go as hard as they can to show three-dimensional combat. You have the detection, you close in on the target, you begin the attack run, you then maneuver to try to either get the kill or to fly away if you don't succeed, and then run away. They also go into details. Another thing that the starfighters that the Rebel Alliance has over what the Imperials have, way better sensor arrays. In fact, actually, the reason why they swarm around their star destroyers are because the Imperial doctrine is to have the naval ships, the main capitals, actually detect the targets. They also the Empire starfighters rely on flight controllers, so they don't have initiative compared to the Rebel Alliance. Here's a little story on the raid of Farah's Belt. Unannounced to the rebel, Imperial intelligence had broken the rebel code and was listing in. Intercepted a rebel transmission that an understar had a gravitational fluctuation malfunction near the target of the rebel attack. And they got absolutely destroyed. Visual scanners of a fighter's electronic sensors are jammed. They have to rely on visuals. Nowhere near as good, but they're kind of critical in those cases. They also go into details about how legitimately the difference between victory and death is usually surprise. Because yeah, the first person that can get on the other person's tail and start firing, that's the one that's gonna succeed. Also, you still there? Hello? Looks like I'm by myself with you guys, chat. First spot the enemy wins. Yep, deciding to attack. They go into really big details about this, actually. Like, and they also show formations. So the way scanners were, all General Grievous can hear is happy, happy, joy, joy. I could see that, Ozel. Especially like when he starts murdering Jedi. That just begins playing. So that's stage one. Stage one is to just get the scans. Stage two is to close in. The big key detail for that is you need to go fast and you need to be able to keep hidden. Sometimes you also have to deceive. Basically, you might have to change it and make it look like you're going for a different target. Then you enter your attack vector, which they give some details on how you do that. You can pretend to make a head-on attack, but then turn, and then use that to distract and attack. These are actually fighter tactics that you can see in World War II, which I really like. Like, on the one hand, this is like really nitty gritty, but on the other hand, I like that they put this much thought into it. They also give you some basic maneuvers like the prime target cone. Prime target cone means that you're likely on the back end. You're likely going to be in there. The deadly cone is where you're basically fucked. Uh, Sometimes you have to break position, like if you're about to get shot. And here's some ways to do some breaks. There's ones like the scissors. This is where you constantly keep trying to weave. You can do what's called jinking. What you do this is to throw the aim off. You can also reverse throttle hop, where you have to pull up and roll. There's also the talon roll, which is a barrel roll. You can also set up traps. Apologies. God, they go into so many details on how you can do breakaways or to set up for new positioning. And then last but not least, there is disengagement. No ImpCit, just the lame guest host. Yeah, 0 out of 5 would not recommend. Let me check something.
Maybe it's a bit more. I guess trades those shields for hull.
So, guess what funny bullshit happened?
What?
The chat couldn't hear you for like a good 5 minutes because Discord decided to be a prick and
Wait, so no.
drop you for like a good 5 minutes.
Hold on. No one heard me.
Because Discord was a piece of shit.
Oh
Our
God.
internets were fine. Discord decided to pull a ha-ha funny. Don't worry, guys. We got the better half of this duo back. Oh no, he's back! Oh, come on. Which one is it?
Oh, I thought Adam was the one that dropped.
No, Discord just decided to pull a funny bullshit.
So where were we left off? Because I was just finished ranting about the Y-wing.
Oh, actually, why don't you rant about the Y-wing because they missed it? I covered the 5 aspects of how you do a fighter thing, where you do visual scanners, you enter the approach, you begin the attack, you then begin maneuvering, and then disengage. We kind of covered all that. Don't worry.
Okay, so now that somehow we're all back, uh, there's the Z95 Headhunter, which I don't know if it was in the movies, but I remember it in other media.
It's in other media. I think you might see them occasionally in some areas like where you're not looking. Like they're probably space filler fighters that sometimes show up.
Because they kind of just look like an X-wing.
Thank you, Discord, for funny bullshit. Anyway, the Headhunter, I do like them.
Yeah.
Good design.
I will say I'll now have it another reason to look back and see what I missed. But the so you have they have two types of Y-wings. You have the long probe, which is a reconnaissance one, and the standard one. The standard one has two crew. It actually has more shields, but
But what? Oh, is Discord pulling funny bullshit again? God damn it, really? Discord, stop pulling funny bullshit.
okay,
Discord, stop pulling funny
we were
bullshit.
disconnected again. Hold on, I'm gonna.
No, it's not
Oh,
your internet. I think it's Discord being a fucking asshole.
hold on, I'm gonna disconnect, reconnect for a second.
Yeah, let me do that too, just because this is some funny bullshit. Discord's pulling some funny bullshit.
All right, everyone, hear me?
Yeah, don't worry. Discord will pull some funny bullshit again.
Okay, where do we stop?
We were talking about the Y-wing again. So you're about to I guess Discord. You insulted Discord's favorite plane.
Well, no, I want to say I do like the Y-wing. There's the long probe, which is the long range one, and the standard one, which is the bomber.
We have to return to more reliable methods of communications like smoke signals. I need to get the device that Emperor Palpatine has. Oh, let me guess. Let me guess. 1 second. Let me see. Is it pulling funny bullshit again?
No, no, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. It's just you went quiet for a couple seconds, and I'm fucking paranoid right now.
I have two. I might want to install a webcam and just have learn sign language. Just in the event that everything goes down, you can translate what I'm saying.
But yeah, you were ranting about the Y-wing.
Yeah, so I was just saying there's two different types.
Yep.
One is nav computer, one is not. Quickly, hopefully, we're gonna move on to the X-wing.
Just last thing to note: the Y-wing, actually, if I recall correctly, it was not. It was originally rejected or being phased out because it wasn't a good fighter, but because it has the heavy armor, it turned it into an excellent bomber. It turned it into an excellent torpedo launcher.
Yep. And then you have the classic X-wing 65, and then the A-wing, which was made by General Dodonna after the Battle of Yavin.
Yep. The A-wing is an interesting little beast because its whole thing is fast.
And I feel like the V-wing from Episode
It was
3.
an evolution of the V-wing,
Yeah.
which,
Yep.
if you're wondering, was kind of created as a little bit of a nod to this is where Dodonna got his idea from.
Yep. And yeah, it is
It
very
is a
fast.
sprinter. It has bad turning. That's its big weakness. And an experienced TIE fighter will turn it into a turn fight and basically blast it from the rear. That's not to say
And
the A-Wing is bad. It's actually an amazing sprinter. It is an
what
excellent interceptor.
what's interesting that you see in the lore an evolution of this, because then you see the K-wing, more of a gunship, sort of I guess combining maybe like the B-wing and the Y-wing, while you have with the E-wing combination of the A-wing and the X-wing.
Yeah, the E-Wing's kind of like the best of both worlds. And then we got the B-Wing, which is designed by Admiral Akbar.
I love this one.
It's a great design. It's not my favorite of the design. I think the X-Wing is just kind of like it has that beautiful visual.
Yeah,
Um, but I would say the B-Wing is my favorite besides that.
it looks so weird, and because of how like the cockpit stays in place, but you can kind of shift where the guns are. Also, I remember in what was it Rogue Squadron games loving the B-wing.
Well, yeah, because Admiral Akbar is like, well, we're not going to be able to, defeat the Empire with what we got. We need to be able to punch above our weight. So he designed this thing to be able to beat the shit out of a frigate.
It's got a laser cannon. It's got a proton torpedo launchers. It's got ion cannons, auto blasters. Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's an excellent ship. It's rather expensive. It is not. It lacks the speed qualities of the A-wing, and it's kind of not as good as the jack of all trades the X-wing was. But I would argue if you need something to fuck up a ship, this is what you bring.
And let's see. So not Nito. A wing, B wing, E wing.
Also, if
I
this thing gets a bead on a TIE fighter, it can shred through an entire wing really quickly.
I I think Disney made the U wing, which was a transport.
They
What is
did
it?
make
The
the
X-wing,
U-wing. I don't hate
Y
that
wing.
idea.
Yeah.
They
I
did
think there's
have.
a G wing.
I think there is. I think that one was made by Porsche or something because they had a car company as like part of their shill project make a starfighter of some sort. They also had the stupid bombers, which I only hate because of how they're trying really hard to make it work like World War II bombers, where it's trying to translate the medium in a bad way.
And then just making another X-wing version.
When why would you need a bomber like that when you got Y wings or B wings or K wings?
Yeah.
Like if you told me that what they had were converted cargo ships that they converted into bombers, sure, fine, that would have been okay.
So the next step is after the starship combat is ground combat, which well, the Empire beats the Alliance in ground combat as well. They've got
Casually,
yeah, a factor of 30 to 1 in terms of force manpower, 12 to
12 to
1
1 in
equipment,
equipment.
and but the difference is morale. The rebels are all volunteers, and the Imperials have a lot more to lose.
Essentially, the problem is the Empire has to watch a lot of space. They have to control a lot of the galaxy. So the rebels can pick their battles. And most of the time they are fighting soldiers that are nowhere near as motivated as they are.
As we a lot of them being press ganged, a lot of them just being in it for the money. They're not fighting stormtroopers. They're fighting
They're fighting either planetary
militia.
security troopers, militia, or the Imperial Army.
So as Maydeen says, hit them where they ain't. Attack the enemy's spirit. Use your brains. Saying you are not encumbered by out-of-date academy training. You're not encumbered by fear of replacement if you screw up, and there's a little chance one of your subordinates deciding he wants your job enough to kill you for it.
Yeah, that's a problem in the Empire, by the way.
Yeah. Learn how your enemy thinks. Most Imperial officers will do things by the book because that's how they are trained, and most of them who are smart enough to overcome their training have defected to us.
Um, I think this is more for motivational purposes. The reason I would give for this one because Madine's more for like if you're talking to a new, newly inducted soldier. That's kind of the point of view that this is being written in.
Yep.
The reason that you go with what you're trained for by the book is, well, essentially, if you're going by the book, you have the book to cover your ass. Basically, you can't be accused of making dumb decisions if you're just following what the academy tells you. Like, you're following the basic battle protocols. I'm given the information I got, and that's what I went with.
So
You can
then,
actually see that with the conga lining of death that happens in Russia against the Ukraine.
yeah,
Against Ukraine,
then,
sorry.
yeah, then you see an example of a battle, the Battle of Teams by or Thames by General Riken, where you had the Imperials pushing up against the rebels, and what they essentially did is force the Empire to divert its forces to a lot of smaller groups, and they were able to then pinch two regiments together. As I said, Imperial doctrine requires commanders to concentrate the maximum force against the weakest part of the enemy's line.
Which, if you're tracking World War II, that's a bit of a nod to Blitzkrieg. In particular, the concept is Schwerpunkt, the center of gravity. where the
The other
weight of your numbers matters the most.
the other thing that was learned, training pays off. The Alliance troops performed
It does.
brilliantly. The battalions to the left and right flank held their own against twice their own number for over 2 hours. The other final lesson is you don't have to annihilate the enemy to beat him. The Imperials started out the campaign with 4 regiments. They lost 2 in the battle. They were reinforced by a full division, giving them a total of 6. The Alliance began the campaign with 3 regiments. They used up a regiment in the execution of the trap, leaving them 2 in any shape for further combat. Thus, when the battle opened, the Imperials had 4 regiments facing 3. By all rights, the Alliance forces should have been overwhelmed. Instead, the Imperial commander delayed his attack until he had air support, which was too late.
Technically, it was a tactical victory for the Empire. Strategically, it was a defeat because they could not actually crush the cell.
And then they give sort of how a soldier is in the ground combat. So this is different from the spec force. They pretty much have the kit they can carry on them.
Oh, good.
They're
They
trying,
actually do have infantrymen. I was a little bit
yeah,
concerned about that because they didn't mention that until here.
yeah. So you have comlinks, directional transponders, survival packs, uniforms, which again they're not standardized. Like the fleet troopers, the classic Tantive 4. I am pretty sure that is Alderaanian. Like that's just
Well, it
the Alderaanian
was. They
forces.
got fucking annihilated.
Yeah.
Yeah, they basically just have what they have.
So there really isn't anything standardized. Same thing with their blasters. Like they have various blaster rifles: the Saurus Sub 16, the Merson G8, the Blastech A280.
Oh, by
You
the
know,
way, if you're wondering, what Disney has been reduced to doing desperately whenever they show the New Republic, they did this in, I believe, Ahsoka especially. They used the Fleet Trooper as the model for the uniforms, and it looks really stupid.
to be fair, I mean, they're trying to do a standardized thing, and old stuff did this as well.
Well, they took the old stuff, but they skin suit walkered it,
Yeah.
where it just doesn't look right.
And then
Like,
you
don't
get,
get me wrong, you could probably convert it, but like they kept the vests and everything, and it looked a little doofy.
yeah, I mean, I would keep some sort of like classical military vest or something like
You could
that.
keep the boots, you can keep the jump. I would have gone with the orange jumpsuits, to be honest. Like, you just change the color a bit, and there you go.
Yeah.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes. Are we are
I
we clear?
don't know if we're back on. Hello, guys, are we still here? Let me give a quick look because some absolute fucking nonsense has happened.
I believe it's Imperial infiltration.
Okay,
Starkiller has
confirmed.
confirmed.
Sorry about that. So, not only has Discord pulled some silly bullshit, my internet decided to throw a little fucking garbage tantrum. For no reason, by the way.
Have you
Like,
tried supplicating it?
uh, I jiggled the thing and it made it work. Here's the best part. My connection was just fine on my phone, so it was just legitimately my computer decided to throw a fucking little baby tantrum. Sorry about that. So, where were we? I do want to finish this book. Apologies for the
Yeah.
weird delay.
So we were on the infantry weapons.
So there's a variety of infantry weapons. Yeah, we're back, not Nito. Sorry about that. My internet decided to join in on the Discord to throw a little prank at my way. It decided to throw a hissy fit and not work for 2 minutes for no reason.
But as what I was saying, yeah, they have an excellent ragtag feel.
So, funnily enough, the Alliance tend to use more powerful blaster rifles. They use long-barreled ones traditionally. They
Which
also try
I
to
don't know how
keep
that
away.
affects the laser, but yeah, long range, heavy hitting.
Also, yes, they don't have a consistent model. They have at least 3 as their most common. Same with blaster pistols. That's just what they get their hands on. They tend
What
to
I did find
prefer
interesting,
power.
is that there's a reference to the Zerker Corporation more than a decade before they're in a video game.
Yep. Also, they referenced the Blastech DL-44, which is Han Solo's favorite pistol.
Yep. They actually have a little image of it. And then they also bring up later personal artillery, including thermal detonators, which are pretty much not used by standard troopers because it could explode prematurely.
Yeah, it's not something it's recommended. Oh God, detonite. So detonite's an interesting material because it's not the most stable, and it does if you know how to use your weapons, you can do ship grade weapon damage with this thing. As a little bit of a nod, back when the Spoonie one did Counter Monkey videos, he described how he basically wiped out, I believe it was a pair of Sith or aspiring Sith by just lining a corridor with detonite and basically forcing them to fucking run towards him.
Yeah.
One got caught in the blast, and the other one was, I think, taken out by a mixture of net gun and flamethrower units.
Ah, the HK-47 method.
Yeah, Spoonie bragged about creating HK-47 before the character was made. I don't know about that, but basically he was like, how do I make something that can fuck up a Jedi?
Speculation. He was most certainly lying.
Probably. The EWAB heavy-hitting blaster, we've actually seen that in the
Yeah.
Imperial source book. Thermo
As
detonators and
yep.
grenades.
And we've the artillery wise, the anti-ground artillery of the anti-laser cannon, anti-infantry battery, and the anti-space, which is the heavy ion cannon used in Episode 5.
They also show the
Yeah,
FDP tower.
yeah. They show also the various different combat vehicles, and most of them are like modified, decommissioned transport ships with a little bit of light offensive firepower.
Also, that P tower that you see there, the Rebel Alliance fucking hates most of their hates them. It's not powerful enough to actually hurt their heavy vehicles. If the weapons don't protect them from the enemy and severely limit their mobility, what's the point of using them? The only reason they even still make them is because they're cheap.
Mm.
The most common anti-infantry battery is this tower thing, which is made by Golan Arms.
And then we got the again modified light assault vehicles, the free runners.
The anti-orbital ion cannon, the DYV-150.
Yep. But basically, it's what we've seen before. You know.
Also, hey, look, we got a technical. We got a modified hover car technical with a gun on the back.
Yep.
That's great.
And they give us speeder bikes, or the Cardassian Thumper as a mounted unit. And they give us various sort of transports, shuttles, skiffs. Oh, and later on they showed the airspeeder.
Yep, we got heavy trackers, scouting vehicles, includes the speeder bikes, the Crassian Thumper.
Is a tauntaun.
It's a
That's a
tauntaun. I'm just now reminded of the Book of Boba Fett terrible bike chase scene they did. It's like, hey, remember this terrible thing? Here's what it was trying to wear the skin of while imitating the product.
yeah.
Here is what it was skinwalkering as. Like,
But
remember
interesting
the stupid horse in Vacuum of Space? This is what it was trying to wear the skin of.
they actually bring up with the snowspeeder the attack pattern delta from the movie, which is where they split off. So the
Oh no, please no, no more. No, please, Discord, no.
Oh dear God.
I'm about to have a stroke. All right, I can hear you again. I think
Where did I miss?
you were just you cut out for like 2 seconds.
With the attack pattern delta?
Yeah, we never got to what attack pattern delta looked like. Here it is.
Yeah. It it's splitting off so that the walker can only fire on one speeder.
Mm-hmm. By the way, you see the snow speeders again in the terrible Obi-Wan Kenobi show. They use a CGI corpse puppet of one, and it looked terrible. It was
Yeah.
destroyed by, I think, either Moses Ingram's character throwing a box at. I think it was, yeah, it was Moses Ingram throwing a box at it. It blew it up.
Hmm. But then let's see. The next section is about
They
droids.
also show the bantha decoy method.
Yeah, apparently that was one of Luke's methods, but just before Discord completely craps on us.
Yeah, let's just go fast. I'm getting sick of this shit.
All right, so you got droids. We all know what droids do.
Where do they get them? The droid industry is dominated by two firms, Industrial Automatons and Cybot Galactica. There's a few others like Arakid and Geentech.
You think Cybot Galactica is a reference
Yeah, it has to be.
to Battlestar Galactica?
It has to be. Just like how Industrial Automaton is a nod to ILM.
Hmm. So they got obviously new droid types, explorer
There's
droids.
also a
The
lot of large. There's also a large used droid market because cheapos are pretty
yeah,
fine.
the pilot droid of an astromech espionage droids that appear to look like the 3PO protocol droids, B1 worker droids, servant droids.
Oh yeah, Industrial
And
Automaton V1 Pilot. It's essentially part of the Astromech line, sort of, but not quite.
yeah. Next section is Alliance bases, how they operate, how they function. Like they give an example of Echo base
Also,
from
the
Hawk.
espionage droid being based on a protocol droid. I believe they were actually just retrofitted protocol droids.
Yeah,
B1 worker droids. Interesting. There was a B1 before the B1s.
yep, different company.
Oh God,
Also,
did we do anything funny after the MLP stream? I mean, I we shat all over Princess the Hopeful. SE4 Servant Droid. It's one of the oldest lines still made by them. And do we have a model? Oh, that's disturbing.
what?
I don't like the Servant Droid model. Ugh. Something about the face and the way the arms
Oh
look.
God, yeah, that.
Do I look pretty?
It looks like it's like constrained.
It looks like it's about to go rampant and try to kill you.
They over. It's similar to the proto. It's a knockoff protocol droid.
And it looks terrible because of it. Oh God, that thing's awful. Well, I think I figured out why Discord was not wanting us to continue. It wanted to save us from this fucking thing.
Yeah.
That's gonna haunt my dreams, I think. Let's look at the
Well, I think.
surveillance droid. That looks a lot better.
Yeah.
Ah, that's a lot better. Oh, ah! Okay, let's get away from that. That's horrifying. Alliance bases! And yes,
So
the arms were asymmetrical. Like, every aspect of that thing is fucking horrifying.
yeah. So yeah, you've got it basically just going through what a base is. You got your defenses, manufacturing capabilities, your own underground base, supply base, all bunch of stuff.
Yep, like, for example, some of the stuff that exists include sector commands.
Mm.
This is the most critical stuff. It's usually where leadership is at the moment.
Chapter 9 is the support services, which it
Yep,
includes,
manufacturing underground. Yeah, we can just kind of skip into chapter 9. It's fine.
yeah, which includes the safe worlds. They're basically places for rebel family members to escape the Empire.
Which includes
Uh,
because remember the galaxy isn't fully explored. There's an entire region called unknown space, and there's other areas,
Yep. And
including
also,
New Alderaan.
yep. And also these planets can then also be used as manufacturing places. And the Empire doesn't know about them, so you know.
There's also Sanctuary.
Yep. Fitter. Oh, and also, you know what's on these planets? Imperial prisoners. Here's what they do though. They drop these prisoners on a different continent, giving supplies for farm equipment for the first year, and then periodic visits with medical ships, and the prisoners just left alone. I mean, they have no way off the planet, but at the same time, why don't you just kill them?
Yeah, it's a like that's about as cruel as what happened to Flitter. Which, if you're wondering what happened, they did not know that the planet had extremely cold winters. The Empire's response was basically just to put a blockade and laugh as they starved to death in the cold. After bombing their cities to rubble.
Yeah.
Oh, and all of the land and forest being poisoned with airdrop toxins.
Ah, the Empire. Uh, and so
Yeah,
they bring
safe
up
worlds
the
are very much boonies.
yeah they actually show the various transports, bulk freighters. They bring up the medical
As
services.
for why they're living like cavemen, like Ugg hit with stick, it's legitimately because the more technology, the more likely the scanners that the Empire has will find them.
Yep. And then chapter 10, which actually begins with a part of the script of, I think, episode 4. Part of the deleted scene of Luke talking to Biggs.
Oh, by the way, Gallifrey Yards medium transport. That's a bit of a nod to the Doctor. Gallifrey. Which is fitting because George Lucas legitimately made the Trade Federation as a big shitpost against Star Trek.
Wait, what?
Oh, you didn't know that? It's not
Oh,
just that they're run
that.
by the Nemoidians. Originally, they were supposed to be called the Shatnerians.
Are
And
you
on
kidding
top
me?
of that, the different colors of the droids, like you notice how they had different colored lapels in
Oh
episode
my
one.
God.
They had red, blue, and
Oh,
yellow. It was one big shitpost of the Federation from Star Trek.
I thought it was either against the Republicans or it was against Japanese corporations.
Not purposefully. It
Uh,
was supposed to be more of a big shitpost nod against Star Trek. Not as like a hateful way, just more in a playful way, like, oh you. But yeah, they were originally supposed to be called Shatnerians. He changed his mind because it didn't sound right, so he called them Nemoidians after Nimoy.
Oh, there we go. Now that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's one of those weird, fun trivia facts that I picked up.
so yeah, there's actually this whole scene of for chapter 10 starting out, Biggs talking to Luke, and it's actually very interesting because they're
Oh yeah,
talking
this is the cut
about
script. Yeah.
yeah, they're talking about um that there's just been a lot of unrest with the Sand People, and Biggs saying your uncle could hold off a whole colony of Sand People with one blaster. But they're also talking about the fact that they're starting to nationalize commerce in the central systems. And honestly, this I would have wanted this deleted scene in.
There's a really good radio broadcast that includes a lot of scenes like this in there.
Nice.
There's a good
So,
radio broadcasting. It's not a novelization. It's like a radio broadcast that you can kind of play alongside episode 4, and it's pretty good. Also,
nice.
yes, the Gallifrey is the rare ship. They went out of business.
Yep. So
Which I just
the
realized this is because Doctor Who died at this point.
no, it was still a. Oh, you're
Barely.
right. Yeah, but I have no idea if it was named Gallifrey or Gallifrey because of this, or if it was something else.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was renamed to that just because the Doctor Who got fucking axed in the UK.
No, it might have been the source book. It might have been just the source book where it came from. So apparently, after the Death Star destruction, they've had recruitment of up to 23% within the Alliance, which is great, but that also means higher infiltration, lack of equipment, and yeah, a lot of these problems.
Also,
But
the rebels are still pretty experienced with getting rid of ISB agents and infiltrators because, well, they've dealt with it before. Training sergeants are trained specifically to catch suspicious behavior.
so
And if they
the
have doubts, they can send intelligence officials to monitor them and detain them.
Yep. And so the source of personnel, I mean, primarily it is from people that you know, uh, Alderaanians, Mon Calamari, Friendly Planets, including the Imperial Naval Academy. Those that refuse to get indoctrinated are the ones that end up leaving. And they actually, within the Alliance, they have an agent within their academy. Greg Somax, a mathematics instructor, and he's always on the lookout for new recruits, but he never contacts the recruit himself.
Which is a good idea. You always want to have proxies. By the way, if you're wondering why so many go through the Naval Academy and Starfighter Academy, it is because they've heard good things from their parents because that was back when it was the Republic. The
And I mean,
institutional rot wasn't fully set in yet.
and it is a legitimate pathway. You serve your years to get a starship. Let's see what else. The Imperial Survey Corps actually is another place they get people from because they're a lot more independent minded.
Also, the Outer Rim tends to be pretty good recruitment worlds just because there's not much out there.
Yeah. Various schools and universities. Um, but then when it comes to um, training, they have their basic training, but they have specific training for ground officers, and naval officers. Uh, I actually do like this image here of I guess a bunch of the recruits being woken up, and there's a Wookiee as well who's clearly
I love
not
the.
had enough rest.
It's either that or you're going with that. I could buy that. I was thinking more like the Wookiee is the drill sergeant screaming at them to get up.
Well, no. Oh,
No,
well,
I
who's
think you're
Bane?
more correct because he looks frazzled. I'm gonna go with yours because that makes more sense.
And well, that is it. And
Yeah, that's pretty it. That's pretty much it. And in conclusion, the Rebel Alliance is disparate. They're heavily outgunned, but their soldiers are extremely well trained. They are very motivated, and the thing that's keeping them alive is they are always a little bit ahead of the Empire when it comes to intelligence gathering. At least when
what
it
I did,
comes to protecting themselves.
what I really did like about this book is it really did portray the Rebel Alliance as this disparate group that they have structure, they have plans, and that sort of stuff, but they lack their resources.
I
They're
love
always
the
on edge.
emphasis that they put on independence. Every aspect of the alliance is designed to be able to work without the greater whole in the event that the top gets severed. Like if Mon Mothma got blown up, that would be a massive setback, but a lot of the commanders and chiefs can still run their own cells below her, and vice versa. If one of them gets cacked, that's not the end to the unit. Same applies to their intelligence. They put a lot of effort in how the structure works. They also go really whole hog into military strategy and tactics. In particular, if you're a fan of dogfighting, they go hard into it in that book. And again, all of this was better coded and better designed than anything Disney has fucking shot out aside from Andor, which was a complete accident, and it's just because the dude wanted to do his own story. And while wasn't a fan of Star Wars, was willing to at least look at the lore.
And we can only hope that when the sequel comes out that it retains that.
I'm doubtful because whenever Disney gets a success, even if it's accidental, they want to make sure all their management gets the success, which always leads to failure.
Yeah.
Success has many parents, but failures are always orphans. So
Well,
yeah, overall,
hope
good book. I wouldn't say I think I like the Imperial book a little bit more because I think it's just more interesting.
a lot more detail on everything.
That's kind of its big weakness, but it does give you some really fun ideas on how the rebels work. Again, sorry for the internet crashing a little bit. When the stream kind of kicks back in, I think the most you might it'll just kind of seek into because I wasn't saying much during that time except maybe like a fuck or two, but I doubt it'll actually be a part of that stream. It's just because like of the cut. Also, sorry for Discord being a cheeky fucker. I'm gonna cut it now because it's almost 3 hours and I don't want Discord to pull one last funny.
Well, good night, everyone.
Night, everyone. No clue what we're going to do next week. Oh, by the way, before I go off, we have a Discord for those new. Feel free to jump in. You cannot really get this book anymore because West End's went belly up, but you can find it on Amazon and you can find it elsewhere. And last but not least, credit to what's his name? Piccolo, the guy who made the art that we used for our thumbnail, because he genuinely does amazing concept arts. I just wanted to get that out there.
Yep.
Have a good night. And next week, I think we'll actually hold it up to a poll.